to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
The blackest dies.
Killing God.
Come on!
To make this pencil.
You're terminated, fucker.
Live or die, man.
Roads? Well, we're going, we don't need roads.
There can be only one.
Kill you all.
Goonies never say die.
We all need each other. As you can see, I'm not happier.
Are you not entertained?
This is the end, friend.
Happy trails, Hans.
Welcome back to the Skewered Universe Podcast. My name is Jeff, and I don't have Leanne with me this week, but I do have a very special guest to help me talk about the 1987 vampire film. It may be the best vampire film, but we'll get into that. We're talking about Near Dark. And of course, to talk about this movie with me, I brought my good friend Chuck here. Chuck, how you doing tonight?
Hey, man. I'm doing all right. I appreciate
Good.
you having me on.
Of course,
You
man.
doing all right?
Anytime. You're always welcome. This is, I don't even know how many times we've had you on now, but it's routine, man. It's
been a few. Yeah.
it's always a good time.
Yeah, always.
So, what have you been up to before we even get into the movie? What you been up to, Chuck?
Oh, shit. Man, I have been, besides doing the dad thing, I've been writing a lot. I've been kind of trying to get back in the swing of that. I kind of had a busy weekend. It was my son's birthday party. And then after my son's birthday party, me and a buddy, got free tickets, to Saturday night at Louder Than Life and, to see Pantera. So,
nice.
and so that was a wild ass night, to be perfectly blunt and honest about it. But yeah, it was awesome. It was cool. I got to see Pantera back on one of their last tours, back in the day. And it was cool to see the new formation of Pantera, as weird as it is, but, it was fucking killer. It was killer. But yeah, so I've been doing that shit, and I've been writing, recording. We finished our recording in Bastard Sons for our new album that we're getting ready to put out.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We had a few snags here and there. We finally got it all done. We finished up the last of the vocals a couple weeks ago, and I think Josh is finally, I think he's mixed everything. So all we're doing now is we're working on ideas for a video for the first single, and then we'll be putting out the digital and physical copies. So yeah, it's been busy. It's been busy, you know, and the podcast on top. Video Store Clerks every Tuesday, you know, and me and Whitman doing Graveyard Talk, every chance we get. And, you know, so it's, plus there's all kinds of other shit that I can't even really go into. That's happening, but it's all good. It's just, time. It's all about time.
I get it, man. So I just want to touch real quick. Recently, Video Store Clerks. Didn't you guys just talk about a seminal 80s favorite?
Oh, Monster Squad?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. We talked about that Tuesday night. That was a fun one. Whitman was on there with us too.
Oh, nice.
Monster Squad, man. That we talked. I think we talked for about an hour and a half. It's always fun to go back and relive some of your favorites. And that one, man, I couldn't wait to show my kid this, because he had never seen. He watched it when he was real little, but didn't remember it. He watched it when me and his sister watched it, and
okay.
Yeah, so it was cool. It was cool to introduce him to it, and he dug it, and yeah, just gotta keep the cycle going. It's kind of ridiculous, and there's a lot of it that doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you look at a lot of movies that I like and shit, there's a pattern, so I don't care. Yeah,
I love the Monster Squad. So when I saw you guys recovered, I was like, oh hell yeah! Unfortunately, something came up and I missed watching your guys' show on Tuesday, but I wanted to make sure anyone who's a Monster Squad lover goes back and checks it out.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you should definitely go back and check it out too.
I'm going to, because I love that movie. I saw it once. My parents rented it once for my brother and I when we were younger, and it stuck with me because I always remember Wolfman's Got Nards.
Of course.
And there were so many people who would be like, "What are you talking about?" As I was growing up, and I'm like, I didn't make this movie up, people.
Yeah.
And I've realized there's like two definitive camps. There's the Goonies camp. There's the Monster Squad camp.
Yep.
The majority of people saw Goonies, and then there's the rest of us who saw Monster Squad. And I'm not bashing Goonies at all. I've watched it. No. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I go more for Monster Squad.
Fuck yeah. I mean, if you're a horror fan, man, it just like Goonies had its thriller aspect to it.
Right.
But, it's ultimately an action adventure film. And Monster Squad kind of caters to the, or catered as a kid, and even now caters to the youth, but something, it's really cool watching it when you're a kid watching a movie where there's kids fighting Dracula and Wolfman and all them. It's pretty cool. Like, these days kids get into it because of people like me, the parents that, because a lot of kids wouldn't even give it a fucking chance. Because they hate Monster Squad, they want Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, Pinhead, and all them. That's just ridiculous. That doesn't even, you couldn't even fit that in a movie and make it make sense. No fucking way. And honestly, Monster Squad barely does. But theirs makes more sense, because Dracula is always the leader. He's always, so.
Exactly.
But yeah, fucking favorite. I still love that fucking movie. Still.
I do too. And as an adult, it's like the part with Phoebe and Frankenstein hits me a little bit harder now. I'm like, oh, she just wanted her friend to stay, and he just wanted to stay there and be her friend. It was like he wasn't threatening ever.
Right.
Just exactly like how the creature should have been portrayed for everything.
Right.
He was misunderstood. He was a gentle creature that was misunderstood. I mean, that's the way I see it.
Oh, yeah. He was a gentle giant. I mean, yeah, that's why everybody kind of, when it comes to Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, everybody kind of lead towards him because they kind of feel bad, because everybody can kind of relate a little bit. Us outcasts, man, Frankie was the one that we kind of went to because it's like, I get it, man. You don't mean, it's like, oh, well, I didn't mean to do this. I mean, no, I've never thrown a child into a body of water thinking they could float.
Yeah.
But, he didn't mean to do that. He didn't know better. He just thought, oh, and so Frankenstein's monster was always a favorite. And I think as a horror fan, it usually is everybody's favorite. But it's like it's real close with me and Creature from the Black Lagoon.
See, I still have to see the original Creature.
Oh my God, Jeff!
It's a hole in the catalog of things I haven't seen yet. But it's one of those it's hard to get a hold of unless I buy that big box set.
Oh, buddy, you can find it.
So
it's on. Was it Peacock?
Oh, is it? Okay.
It was on one of those. That's how me and my kid watched it.
Okay, I've got access to Peacock. I can check it out there.
I'm pretty sure they might still have it on there. So yeah,
I'll check it out because that makes sense. NBC Universal. So yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's a must right there.
Yeah, I gotta say too, the kids in Monster Squad are one of the best portrayals of how kids actually talk to each other in the 80s. Questionable language aside.
Yeah.
It's exactly how kids would pick on each other. It's exactly how kids would look up to the one cool kid and be like, oh, we want that kid to hang out with us. All of us were like, yeah, we know the kid that's Rudy. We all knew a Rudy growing up. We all wanted to hang out with Rudy.
Yeah.
And then deep down, Rudy was always the one that was like, yeah, I'm kind of like you guys as well. I just don't show it a lot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Rudy it was so funny how they portrayed him as kind of like almost like a greaser.
Yeah.
But he had a bicycle, and it's like he smoked cigarettes. And, and the bad thing is, though, as a kid, I thought I was just like, oh, so that's what being cool is.
Yeah. Oh, leather jacket, cigarettes. Okay.
Yeah. These days he'd be chewing gum.
Yeah. And then I found out, he was one of the original cast members of Kids Incorporated. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Shit. Yeah. Kids Incorporated. I almost forgot about that fucking show.
Yeah. I realized that I was watching, I think it was after I was watching it. I'm like, there's a reason he looks so familiar to me, and I can't. Then I started looking, and I was like, oh yeah, Kids Incorporated.
That's so funny. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah,
That's when I was a kid, when I was a real little kid, I watched that every now and then. I think I had a crush on a couple of the girls, so it was on. I'd watch it.
Yeah, I watched a lot of it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's where Mario Lopez started, and I think, who else? Fergie, and there was a few that you can trace back, and you're like, really?
Oh yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. Just kind of like the Mickey Mouse Club with Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and Justin Timberlake and all that.
Yeah,
that's where they used to find all their stars.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to say, if you haven't checked it out, since you're a fan of Monster Squad, there is a pretty cool documentary done by what's his name, Andre Grauer, the guy that played Sean.
Oh, okay.
He did a documentary called Wolfman's Got Nards.
Yeah,
talking about everything. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Actually, it's funny enough, I have not seen it, and it's one I've been meaning to watch. And on Tuesday, everybody was telling me I need to watch it, so that's definitely on the upcoming watches list for sure.
It was really good, and then of course they talked a bit about the kid that played Horace and how he died, and I was like, right in the feels. But it's such a heartfelt documentary of something that all these kids got to do, and from his point of view as being essentially the lead. So kind of seeing how it's kind of affected all their lives and how this cult classic has grown in popularity over the years from something that was so obscure and flopped to being so beloved.
A cult classic, an icon, a staple, of kids getting into horror. That's kind of,
I think it was one of my first exposures to horror aside from Gremlins. Gremlins was my first. This was not long after.
Yeah. I think Monster Squad came along because my dad was never really a horror guy, but he knew that I kind of liked weird stuff, even from a little, being a little kid. And American Movie Classics would have, back when American Movie Classics actually played classics. They would play classic horror movies, monster movies on like Saturday night, or whatever the fuck. And I got really big into those. My dad would tape them for me, and I'd watch them when I got up. And Dad heard about Monster Squad. My dad taped everything that was on HBO at the time, and he taped Monster Squad for me. He's like, "Oh, here, heard you might like this movie," and it became my favorite movie as a kid. So much to the point where I had some issues as a child, and they took away all my rated R movies and my violent movies they thought that I didn't need to watch. And unfortunately, Monster Squad was erased.
Oh.
Yeah. And then years later, and I didn't think I'd ever see that movie again. And years later, I mean, like fucking 10 years later, there was a video store where I grew up that, it's a vape shop now, but, it was like one of the last, like, video stores in that town, and they used to sell VHSs for like $5, and they had the VHS of Monster Squad in there, and my buddy bought it, and we watched it, and I fell in love with it all over again. So I really sincerely love that movie.
Yeah, same. I made sure when they first released the DVD, after it had been making the convention circuit on bootleg, and they're like, okay, we're doing a legitimate DVD release. Like, week one of its release, I made sure to go out and get it. And then it became unavailable for a while after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're talking about the special edition double disc?
Yeah, the double disc. I made sure. I was like, I have to have this. I have to own Monster Squad because I've never owned it. There was that one rental, and then it just disappeared for so many years.
Yeah, and I saw it was it popped up at Walmart one day. I was like, "What the fuck?" It's like Monster Squad. What the hell is this shit? Are you kidding me? And at first, I thought it was. I was like, "Don't tell me it's some cheap remake or whatever." And I looked at it, and I was like, "Nope, that's because they changed the cover. It's not the original cover on that." But
yeah, the cover is totally not anything to do with the movie. It's one of those like, let's make it flashy and But we'll get to alternate artwork when we get to Near Dark. But something else real quick, putting our Monster Squad discussion on hold for a second. Well, not for a second, but good. You have a new book out, I believe, Chuck.
Yeah, I do. House of Flesh. It's a novel. And I started writing it like 8 years ago. And I finished it, I think 2 years after I started it. I'm going to say it's probably a year and a half. I wasn't as motivated. I didn't have much of a schedule, for writing there for a minute, but it ended up being about 241 pages in print. When I wrote it, not being formatted and all that, it was like 300 and something pages. So it took a while, but I'm very proud of it. And I never thought it would ever see the light of day. And it was supposed to be the first thing I released. It was supposed to be my first release, which is how Thirsty ended up being my first release, because, due to the person that was going through and formatting and helped me out with certain edits and all that, House of Flesh, it took her a little longer than expected. She wasn't expecting a full on novel. But yeah, which is fine, because it looks killer. Reads good. So like I'm very proud of it, because what it is my whole reason for writing House of Flesh was basically I was tired of I was trying to figure out where to submit my shit. I don't usually do it, I don't like to cater to other people's shit, but I was looking at different publishers and whatever, that are specifically for horror and all that. And a lot of them, most of them were really wanting erotic horror novels. And I was like, well, this could be fun. I like writing, fucked up gore, and I like writing about kinky sex. And so I was like, why not? And, I kind of let my hair down at the time, and, wrote this really weird, book about these people that move into this house that has a really fucked up past. And, that has to do with, satanic orgies and porno and, yeah, all, possession and, weird characters. And, yeah. There's actually, what's really funny about it is the book itself is in 3 parts. It's like part 1, and then you have your chapters, and then part 2 and all that shit. And what's funny is it's kind of like there's a moment where a whole new cast of characters comes in that weren't there. And I won't give too much away, but it's kind of like you get to see the side of people who aren't okay with living in a fucked up haunted house. And then you meet people who are happy and chipper, but they're more fucked up than the people that are supposed to be fucked up are. You know what I mean? So
okay, yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, like you ever met those people that they dress real nice, they always have a smile on their face, and then come to find out they like to, put on a leather suit and, swim in a fucking vat of excrement. Like, you know what I mean? Like weird shit. Like, oh yeah. Yeah, the people, those are the ones that are usually like kind of fucked up in the head,
Yeah, it's always those clean cut individuals that I'm like, you got some dark shit behind closed doors, don't you? You are way too put together to not have some dark shit at home.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's one thing about writing what I write, and being into what I'm into, is my head always goes that direction. I've always been that way. It's like, I'd be driving through a neighborhood or whatever the fuck, and, see a house that looks interesting. One that just sticks out, and it's like, well, I wonder what the story is there. What goes on behind those doors. Right. And, and it's usually like, I usually think of like the most fucked up ideas of what goes on. Nothing is ever a happy story. Like, it's like, oh, look at that nice white house with a nice white picket fence, and the loving husband, and the wife, who's very faithful, and the kids look happy or whatever. And then immediately, behind closed doors, the dad drinks too much, and the mom's a cheater, and they're both hooked on crack. And yeah,
Yeah.
The kids are sneaking into the liquor cabinet, and that kind of shit. So yeah, that's kind of, that honestly is a big influence on like my writing, is just like looking around and people watching, I like characters. I like fucked up characters. Mm-hmm. This one, I think I had some interesting characters in House of Flesh, and I really hope that people seem to be liking it so far.
Nice.
I've made a few fans who are very, very supportive, and I'm constantly being tagged, which I love. Them tagging me in posts like on different groups, different book groups. People like wanting recommendations, and there's a few people who put House of Flesh up. There's people that put Thirsty up. There's people that just say, just check out anything I do. So it's kind of nice, and there's people that are looking forward to the sequel to Thirsty, and whatever else I've got up my sleeve. It's therapeutic, and I think it just makes the world a safer place when I can just write.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
I will be checking it out, and I will also include links to where people can get the book in the show notes, because support Chuck, support indie horror writers.
Please buy my product.
It'll get the stains out and make you feel better. It'll cure your ED.
Right. Hey, it might. There's some stuff in there that might if somebody's fucked up enough, it might cure your ED.
You never know. You never know.
But yeah, so that's when it comes down to the book stuff. And House of Flesh. Yeah, man. One person did ask me if I was going to do a sequel to House of Flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ever see that happening, just because it is kind of a standalone, but it had me wondering about some things. But I will say this though, my next release, the next book I'm working on right now, is one that I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to. It's one that people can get some anger out while reading. It's called Officer Oink, and it's basically the story of an angry pig man who gets revenge on all the bad cops in his town. And
nice.
And it's my, because when I started writing that, because writing, like I said, it's therapeutic, and you write about what you know, and you know what you're pissed off about. And with all the shit going on with fucking cops fucking confusing their fucking dicks and their fucking pistols, and treating people inhumane and acting like the fucking cocksuckers like they are, and wondering why nobody trusts them anymore. And I was like, what would be a good way? How about we have a pig kill the pigs?
Yeah.
So, I think there's a few people I've told the idea to, and they're like, I'm sold already. Even just the name, because I posted the other day about the name of it, and there was people that commented saying like, yeah, I like where this is going. Yeah, so like that. I'm about 50 pages so far with that. I've got about another 100 to go. But the way that I've been writing on it lately, it shouldn't take me but a couple of weeks. I should be done with it, and then we'll see in the next couple of months. And then after that, I got 1,000 other ideas, and I'll be back on to talk about.
Sounds good, man. I'm always happy to have you on when you got new stuff coming out.
I'm always happy to be on, brother.
It's always a good time. Like I said, I will leave links in the show notes to not only House of Flesh, but also for Thirsty, so you guys can check that out. Make sure you check them out. Thirsty is a lot of fun, and I'm excited to check out House of Flesh.
Yeah. Oh, don't forget about also another release I'm a part of that's out is Sludge. It's an anthology book.
Okay.
And it has a story with Stuart Bray, or reverse it. God damn, I can't talk. It has a story by my buddy Stuart Bray, and it has a couple of stories by Jason Nickey. They're both two amazing writers. Definitely check them out. And I have a couple of my stories in there. And those stories that are in there, that I have in there, are two of my favorite stories that I've written in recent times. And one of them is called Dickworm, and the other one is called Toxic Mouth. And they're as disgusting, if not more, than what you're already thinking. I've never hurt and itched so much while writing a story like I did writing Dickworm. And I wrote two versions of it. So
damn.
Yeah. I wrote Dickworm and Dickworms. And Dick Worm's what's in the book, and Dick Worms is one that I'm going to be putting out a different anthology at some point. And I figure I'll just go with the Alien, like you got like Aliens, and then like Alien 3. So like I got Dick Worm, I'll put out Dick Worms in another anthology, and then I'll have Dick Worm 3.
And Dick Worm Resurrection. And
no, I'm going to stop the trilogy. But I mean, I might. You never know. I might just having too much fun with it. But yeah, so definitely check those out. Do what?
I said Dick Metheus.
Oh, don't give me ideas. Don't tempt me with a good time. You get this fucking mind going, man. Shh, the weirdest shit comes out. You've read Thirsty.
Oh yeah, I have read Thirsty. I know what comes out of your mind, sir.
Yeah, it only gets worse, but better. I'll
make sure to leave info for Sludge in there too, so people can check out that anthology and read your stories in there.
Sweet,
nice. So the reason I brought you on, Chuck, aside from being able to promote your shit, is I had never seen the movie we're going to talk about, and I had reached out to you a while back about, hey, what about this one? You were like, yeah, sure. Or you grabbed it, actually. You're like, Near Dark, I want to do. Yeah. So we're here to talk about the 1987 film Near Dark.
I haven't met many girls like you.
No, you haven't met any girls like me.
I put my hand on the stocking. I was moving nice and slow. And my fingers do the walking. And it ain't far to go. Don't tell me I don't wanna be a girl like that. Do you wanna see a grown man cry? You don't wanna be a girl like that. Maybe this could be the first time. This could be the first time. Naughty, naughty, cute and holy. Tease me. Take it easy. Hug and squeeze me. Love out of life. If you hold down and you dress like a knife, and your eyes burning hot like the sun, kiss me hard, squeeze me tight, I love you all night. So I'm a naughty guy. Bullseye.
Near dark, pray for daylight.
Hell yeah.
Directed by Kathryn Bigelow, written by Eric Red and Kathryn Bigelow. And then I'm going to run down the cast here because you have to talk about the cast.
Yeah. You definitely
So we
do.
have Adrian Pasdar as Caleb Colton, Jenny Wright as May, Lance Henriksen as Jesse Hooker,
the man.
Bill Paxton as Severin,
The other
Jeanette
man.
Goldstein as Diamondback, Tim
Oh, she's hot as
Thomerson
hell.
as Loy Colton, Joshua John Miller as Homer. I fucking loved Homer. And we're just going to go off with Marcy Leeds here as Sarah Colton. So that's basically your main cast. Everyone else is kind of a side player in this.
Right.
I don't know. How would you describe the story of this, Chuck? Because it's kind of there's not a lot to it, but then there is a lot to it. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to make this easy on us because I've got my VHS copy in front of me.
All right.
So I'll just do what I do on my other podcast, and I'll read the back of the box if you will allow.
Go right ahead, sir.
So, all right. Let's see. In the dusty heart of the American Southwest, innocent country boy Caleb Colton is seduced by a beautiful girl into joining a roving pack of vicious drifters led by the enigmatic Jesse. But this is no ordinary band of outlaws. Caleb is now trapped in a nightmare of soulless evil that waits in the shadows, hellish mayhem that thrives on blood, and absolute horror that begins near dark. Yeah, I kind of stumbled just there for a second, but to me, this is I think this is such a killer fucking movie. I mean, like you said, it's one of the best, if not the best. It's not the best, but it is one of the best vampire films ever. To me, I'm a Nosferatu guy. So that one kind of always beats them all. But Near Dark, I mean, everything, there's so much about this movie that makes it one of my favorites. Lance Henriksen is number one. I mean, like, you want to talk about, put it this way, Lance Henriksen is such a big deal to me. He's actually an influence of mine. Mm-hmm. We did an album a while back called Bitterroot, and it was mainly instrumental, except for a middle part where I do a spoken word thing. And I kind of tapped into my inner Lance Henriksen. And a while back, the guys on Video Store Clerks surprised me. They went to a con and met Lance Henriksen. Now, they knew that I was supposed to go to Scarefest where he was at, but that fell through. And that was the biggest reason why it fucking crushed me. So they went to a convention. They met Lance Henriksen. They did a whole video for it and everything, but they didn't show it. They didn't do anything until after I got my package, which was a signed picture by Lance Henriksen, and he wrote all over it, like different sayings and all this shit or whatever from Near Dark and all that. And they asked him, which they showed me the video of him signing everything, and it was fucking cool. I can't remember how old he is, but like, he's still like the coolest motherfucker, and apparently he's super nice too. Mm-hmm. But they told him that they're like, yeah, the other guy that's on our podcast, I don't try to sound like him. It just kind of happens sometimes. I mean, I have a very similar vocal. Mm-hmm. But they told him that, like, yeah, he's trying, he tries his best to do, impersonate your voice. He goes, oh, all he has to do is just take a bamboo stick and shove it down his throat. And, yeah. And I was like, well, shit. They told him that I chain smoke, religiously trying to sound like him. That's not why, but, it definitely helps a little bit,
Of course.
Yeah. But the movie doesn't get half of the respect it deserves. I think only maybe in the last, I could be wrong, but like the last 10 years, it's really gotten people's attention again.
Yeah. And I had always heard about this one, but I had never seen it. This was one that flew under the radar for me back in the day. And I'd heard people, and they're like, you got to watch. They're like, Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton. That's all you need to know.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I tried to check it out years ago, but I'm going to be honest with my feelings here about the movie in the very beginning. Mm-hmm. It starts off so slow that I was trying to watch it late. I turned it off. I was like, I can't. This is way too boring. And I turned it off. But I saw your post. Now going back, I'm like, I see why it is the way it is. Because they want you to think it's going one way, and then it's like, nope, this is where we're going.
Right, yeah.
And just to, I'll show my hand early. I fucking love this movie.
Dude, yeah. It is a slow burn. It does have a little bit of a slow burn to it. But, once you make it to that bar scene, which, I think it's an iconic scene. It's perfect. I mean, you have a band of misfit vampires from all different, generations and time periods. And, mm-hmm. Henderson's character of Jesse, what was it? Jesse
fought for the South.
Yeah. I was like, put his last name. I feel like a dickhead. Hooker. God damn, that's right. But yeah, he fought for the South. And that was, that's his whole character, which actually, the way he got the outfit for Jesse, was he ended up he had them, get a bunch of he got a bunch of secondhand store clothes or whatever. And he pretty much made up the story idea of who Jesse was. And, he's just such a badass. Like, I think that character is like what kind of like made Lance Henriksen be just, I don't know, such a good villain, you know, but because he was Bishop, in Aliens. and he was a good guy there. You know what I mean? And then in Terminator, he was a cop. He didn't last very long in that. So
no, he did not.
So when Near Dark came out, and him playing such a ruthless character, and he did such a damn good job of it. It's just kind of most of the shit you watch with him. He's the villain in some way, shape, or form. There's a few. I mean, he does have movies where he's not.
Like Pumpkinhead, I would argue he's not the bad guy in Pumpkinhead. He's a grieving father trying to get justice for his murdered son. So he's very sympathetic, and you feel for him in that. But then you see this, and you're like, you are just you're cool, you're calm, but uncaring. Yeah, and just cold. You're like, okay, the complete opposite of Bill Paxton. God damn it, Bill Paxton's character, Severin, right, who is completely fucking unhinged.
He's great.
Oh my god,
he's great. It's one of my favorite Bill Paxton characters, man. And rest in peace, Bill Paxton. Yeah, he was one hell of an actor. He was just he was an entertaining fuck, man. He really was. Like, it didn't matter what he was doing. Even his smaller roles, like in True Lies. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like he always gripped you, even if he was only in it for a few minutes. Predator 2. Yeah. Bill Paxton's been in a lot of these, a lot of the franchise films, the Aliens, he made an appearance in Terminator, Predator and all that shit, Predator 2, whatever, like you said, so like, but this one though is like the kind of like, if the Lost Boy, like, kind of like he could have been a Lost Boy. Like, there's a whole theory, like, there's like a fan theory of where, like, where people are kind of saying that that's where he came from, or that's where he ended up. Like he's one of those guys, or he left that group or some shit or whatever. I can't remember what the whole thing was. There's a whole long explanation of why Near Dark and Lost Boys are, in the same universe.
I can see that. My idea was, it seemed almost like the punk that he played in Terminator got turned into a vampire and just was like, well, fuck yeah, I can fuck with anybody I want now.
True. Yeah. And then the bar scene I was talking about, because I think it's a very important scene, because that's when you really see, because one, I'm a fan of, in a movie, when somebody is, changing into something and they're not like, they're confused on what's going on. And you got the other people going, we're going to show you right now what's up. And, this how they do everything in the bar. They go in and, they got a few, bikers in there, and, roughnecks, which one of the guys sitting at the bar, that Bill Paxton fucks with, spits in his face, whatever the fuck, and then has him beat the shit out of, old dude, Caleb. That guy was actually in Terminator 2. That's the guy that Arnold gets his clothes from.
I thought he looked familiar.
Yeah. The fact that I knew that just looking at him is ridiculous.
Some of the time I was like, God, I've seen him somewhere, and I couldn't place it. And I didn't look it up. So I was like, it's probably just one of those guys that looks like somebody. Well, now I know exactly.
I would say that guy's career has been made of being the guy that gets his ass kicked in a bar by somebody better than him. Mm-hmm. Like, he just has that, the biker, pissed off redneck guy. He just plays it so well. I'm sure it's not really that much of an act. But they go in there and they, Caleb realizes his strength, because after this guy beats the shit out of him, he punches him one good time and flies him.
Shoots him across the room. Did I do that? And Bill Paxton's character just starts laughing. Oh, did I do that?
Yeah. Did I do that?
Him like, you fucking idiot. Yeah, you did that.
One of my favorite things is how they do the fucking waitress. You got Bill Paxton over there, like, parading around, freaking out the bartender and all that, because, they've already killed a few people and all that, or whatever. But around then, the waitress comes over, and this is actually, that's when they first kill somebody in there. The waitress goes over to him, and she's getting ready to set the beer down, and they're like, no, just a glass. She's like, just a glass? He's like, yeah, just a glass. And then he ends up like, he's like, oh, are you scared? And of course, like, his woman, Diamond's getting fucking pissed off because he's over there like, kissing on this chick and all this shit. And then she's like, well, do you want something to drink or whatever the fuck? And then she slices her throat open, and then you got the glasses, and he's just filling them up and just sucking them down. And you're like, that is beautiful, because it's so brutal. It's like they are so like, they don't give a fuck about human life. They have been doing this for years, and poor Caleb has got to learn how to kill, and he's too good of a person to want to do that. I just that entire scene is just so, and oh man, the way that the Bill Paxton's character fucking uses his spurs to slice open the old dude behind the bar's fucking throat.
Oh man,
God, brutal.
I mean, like, oh,
the blood don't stop.
No,
it's great. Just because that's one thing, is this movie is pretty brutal. Because it also, we're talking about, Lost Boys and all that stuff. Lost Boys, if I remember correctly, just came out not too long around the same time this did.
Right.
And so there was kind of like conflict there. Something like that. I can't remember the timeline there, but I'm pretty sure they were pretty close together. And there's one of the reasons why Near Dark didn't get half the respect that it deserved when it came out and deserves now.
Yeah, I'm looking it up real quick because I got my phone right here.
Yeah. This is also like, if you got friends who are oh, I love Lost Boys. Oh, you like Lost Boys? Well, then you need to check out Near Dark, because 9 times out of 10, the reason I like Lost Boys is because they like that kind of vampire. It's not all capes and turning into bats. It's about being bloodsuckers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
So, Lost Boys came out July 31st, 1987.
Okay.
Near Dark was October 2nd, 1987. So, a few months apart.
Okay.
And I can see why, because Lost Boys made it big. So, I can see why Near Dark would get overshadowed.
Yeah.
Because Lost Boys was like, oh, you've got the two Coreys. You've got Kiefer Sutherland.
Jason
it's
Patrick.
80s vampires, and they're all like beautiful, but a little crazy.
Yeah,
I always forget that that's Jason Patrick playing Michael until I watch it. I'm like, oh yeah, because like anything I had seen before I watched Lost Boys was Speed 2, and I'm like, this movie's dog shit. Who's this Jason Patrick guy? And then I go back to Lost Boys. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, you were in this.
Yeah,
what happened?
Jason Patrick. I don't really know where his career went. Like, I can't. Honestly, Lost Boys and Speed 2 are the only movies I can think of.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Those are the only movies from Jason Patrick that come to mind. I know. Wait a minute. I know he's been in other shit, but those are the only ones that you think of. And you like to forget about Speed 2,
Yeah.
But
everyone
the crazy,
likes to forget.
The crazy thing, right? I guarantee he does. I'd say Sandra Bullock probably does too. Definitely, since she was in it. A lot of money there, I'm guessing. Got to pay the bills. But the funny thing about Jason Patrick is like, a lot of people don't realize this, and I didn't know this until like maybe 2 years ago, that his father is the priest. I'm drawing a fucking blank again, in The Exorcist. The one that takes the spill down the stairs, the younger priest.
Oh my
Father
God. Karras. Father Karras.
Yeah. The younger guy.
I cannot remember, but the one who came back for Exorcist 3, the good sequel.
Yeah. But yeah, that's his dad. Like when he was a kid, he would be on the set of Exorcist, and Linda Blair, that kind of freaked him out. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how Hollywood works, with the bloodlines.
Yeah, that's
no
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm looking at Jason Patrick's. Not to get totally sidetracked here, but I'm like, oh, he's done a lot, but a lot of stuff is not what I like. I know The Losers from 2010. I really enjoyed that movie. I didn't remember him being in that.
I can't really remember that one. Because I'm trying to think too, and because he's not a bad actor, but I think that when it comes down to roles, I think after a while, because I could be wrong, but I want to say that he did some like TV movies and shit. Maybe some Lifetime shit, maybe some Hallmark movies. I don't know.
There's
But
a lot of what looks
didn't really
like
do
low budget and TV stuff on here.
Bingo bongo, told you.
Yeah, because apparently he was in Sleepers.
Oh fuck yeah! I forgot about Sleepers. That's another one. That's okay. Yeah, man. I can't believe I forgot about that. Yeah,
I haven't seen
that's another good
Sleepers,
one.
but I've heard of it,
Oh,
but I
man.
haven't seen it. And
That's
then
a good
Geronimo,
fucking movie.
Geronimo, an American Legend, which I've heard the name of, and I'm like, never seen it. Yeah, Geronimo. I think it's what else was in this?
Oh, the movie Geronimo,
Yeah,
American Legend. I know what you're talking about. He was in that.
yeah. Jason Patrick, Gene Hackman, Robert Duvall, Wes
Wow.
Studi, Matt Damon. Jeez.
Yeah, I
So-
remember the movie. I don't remember the movie. You know what I mean? Like I remember when it
Yeah.
came out. Yeah, I don't even know if I ever watched that movie. It never, and
Yeah, I never saw
when it
that
came
one, but
out,
I
that
know
was
the
like
name.
I didn't really care.
Yeah, it was
Right,
like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, this is one of those long epic type movies. I'm not down with that.
I just remember, I remember when Hot Shots Part 2 came out. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, and they had the guys jumping out of the plane. I think it was that movie. The guys would jump out of the plane. They're like Geronimo, Geronimo, and there's an Indian guy, and he goes me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget that's what it was. But other than that, like no, like but yeah, I totally forgot about Sleepers. That's a pretty brutal movie. It's not scary, but it's the subject matter is pretty intense. And
Yeah,
it's
I think it's disturbing along the lines of like Requiem for a Dream type of like, oh God, what's happening? Kind of.
no. It's
I mean, not the
extent.
same along the lines of that, but like disturbing to the point of where you might be uncomfortable watching it is what I've heard.
Oh, it's
but
definitely.
I might not be
uncomfortable
true.
moments. No,
So I wanna say it's almost
one of those
got,
movies where.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was waiting. I was seeing what you were saying. No, it's one of those where it makes you feel uncomfortable to the point like it doesn't show you everything, but it tells you everything. You know what I mean? Like just because your mind is probably one of the part of the most dangerous things when it comes down to images. That's why reading stuff is a little bit better than watching movies because there's more that can be explained or whatever in a book. But the bad thing is though, is like when I read and when I write, all that shit, I see that shit so clear. So in movies, sometimes the things that are unseen, are actually worse that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. But
I'm gonna have to check it out. Check it out.
It's a good one.
And the cast, I mean, alone. I mean,
Yeah.
Jason Patrick aside, he's not bad. I'm just saying there are bigger names in that cast.
Yeah. And Kevin
De Niro.
Bacon in that. Well, yeah, and Kevin Bacon in that movie, you really hate, but you're supposed to. So
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So those are the only like when it comes to Jason Patrick like that, like that Sleepers and the other two are the only ones that really come to mind. You know.
Yeah.
But like go back to Near Dark real quick, so before I forget, there are a lot of if you look at the cast of everybody in here, they've all worked in the same realms. Because I said Bill Paxton has been, he was in Terminator, he was in Aliens. Well, Lance Henriksen was in the Terminator, he was in Aliens. The girl that plays is it
Diamondback, Jeanette Goldstein.
Diamondback.
She was
in Terminator 2. She was the stepmother. And Aliens. Yeah.
And Aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, yeah. And so and then of course, old dude that I was telling you about the bar on Terminator 2. And then I'm thinking because I want to think there's another peril somewhere, and I can't remember which one what it was, but yeah, it's almost kind of like oh shit, the director of Aliens, God,
James
thank
Cameron.
you. Jesus, fuck me running. My brain is just not
Hey,
there.
it's
today.
all right, man. It's all right. Don't worry about it. I got you.
But it's almost like a cast of characters of like his movies. You know what I mean? Like this could be, one of his movies.
Yeah,
But-
well, I think if I read the trivia correctly, he suggested to Kathryn Bigelow, I think they were married at the time, that she just used the
okay.
cast from Aliens for Near Dark. And the only one who didn't come over that she talked to was Michael Biehn. But Lance Henriksen, Jeanette Goldstein, and Bill Paxton were like all on board. Bean was the only one who was like, I don't feel like it.
See, and he could have worked too, though. I mean, because Michael Biehn, he's pretty cool. I mean, I've always liked him. I mean, what was he, Hicks in Aliens?
Mm-hmm.
That was me and my buddies. Like Hicks was always kind of like one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But I mean, I
Johnny
think the cast was
Ringo,
great.
man. He's Johnny Ringo.
Yeah. Something else that's kind of interesting when it comes to the cast is, all right, what was the kid's name again?
Homer.
Okay. That dude, I remember him from the Wonder Years back in the day.
Okay.
He was on an episode called Rock and Roll, I think. And he was the new kid in town that played guitar and talked talked himself up a lot and acted like he's playing in all these bands and played all these shows and all that stuff. Well, then Kevin, the character of Kevin, Savage, whatever his fucking name is.
Fred Savage.
Fred Savage, yeah. Like he ends up being in a band with him, and he ends up like the whole thing is the shit talker ends up getting stage fright, and it comes out that he's not as cool as he led everyone to believe he was.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. He actually. Like I like the character. I think it's kind of very similar to Kirsten Dunst, in Interview with the Vampire.
It's just this guy's more of he's more of a crotchety old man in a kid's body.
He really is. Yeah.
And that's what I loved is he would say shit like they'd call, "Get over here, old man," and he's like, just get back at him, just like this crotchety old fuck. But he's just looks like a kid. I'm like, all right, I really like this character.
Yeah, but even though I do like the character, he gets on my fucking nerves. Like I don't know if it's the way he talks or whatever. I know he's just a kid, whatever, but for some reason he irritates the living shit out of me. But I do think it was a good character because when it comes to a vampire clan, you got to have at least that one that unfortunately got changed over when they were still pubescent.
Yeah.
So, something else too, talking about parallels in movies while I'm thinking about it. Sorry, I'm just blah, 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 blah.
No, you're fine. Go right ahead, man.
But are you a fan of From Dusk Till Dawn?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. So how well do you remember that movie?
I remember it pretty damn well.
Because that is also one of my favorite vampire films.
Oh,
well, if you remember correctly, because there's so many movies out there. There's so many great movies that end up in hotels at some point, right? In From Dusk Till Dawn, when the Gecko brothers make it to the hotel before they hijack the family and get into their camper, Seth, George Clooney, goes in and he rings the bell and then he slams it down. And the old man comes out. He's like, "What the hell you want?" He's like, "What do you think I want? You mean old bastard? I want a fucking room." If you remember in Near Dark, Lance Henriksen goes to the room because he's trying to hurry up because the sun's coming up. And the old man comes, like he does the same thing. He comes in and he rings the bell and he just starts slamming it down. And then the old man comes out, and of course, the old man's not as shitty as in From Dusk Till Dawn was. Right. But that whole scene. Because he says pretty much the same shit to him almost. And that whole scene is actually a tribute to Near Dark.
It makes sense because I was watching a lot of this and I was like, God, some of this feels like this just group of characters
like you've seen it
moving
before.
about. It's like, I was like, this has got very From Dusk Till Dawn vibes. And that scene, I was like, huh.
Yeah.
And now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, I get it even more now.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it just it's just one more reason why I love From Dusk Till Dawn. If you ever want to talk about that movie, Down.
Oh, I might have to throw it on the
That's another I love.
So good. I remember the first time I watched that movie, and I won't give too much away, but I was like, oh, this is where we're going. Okay.
Right.
Because I figured, it's like a crime movie, and then it's like, nope, it's this. I'm like, okay, you got me.
There's not too many movies out there that I say are perfect, and that is one of them. I just wish that George Clooney would have stuck with being a badass. I just wish that he did that in more movies.
He was so good.
Oh, dude, yeah, that was a good one. But Near Dark though. Going back to that.
Go back real quick to that hotel scene. I did like where the old caretaker of the hotel or whatever, he was like, "Hey, haven't I seen you around here before? Didn't you come by here like a long time ago?" Yeah. It's like,
every 50 years.
Like, every 50 years, keep an eye out for me or something like that. I was like, watch out or something.
He's like, make a reservation or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, smiles. And it just slips out the door casually. I'm like, how much cooler can you get? No. It's just the coolest way to be like, telling him, like, I'll be back whenever I fucking feel like it, because I'm not going to die, but you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, of course, we all know what happens at the end of the film, but.
Well, yeah. And
anyway.
And the other cool thing about this vampire clan is how they're able to move around during the day in the vehicles. Mm-hmm. They black out the windows, except for a little smidge in the front so they can see.
Yeah, and he's wearing welder's goggles and like part of like a leather mask almost.
Yeah,
like fastened to it so it can block the sun, so he can see out that little strip in like their RV or whatever vehicle they take. I thought that was really cool because I'm like, okay, they're not just holding up somewhere and moving around at night.
Yeah,
they're moving around whenever they want.
Right. See, I like it when vampire movies go a different direction. I think that's another reason why, like, I love this movie and From Dusk Till Dawn and shit like that, just because of the fact that, like, it's like how many times, and Lost Boys as well, it's like how many times can you do the same vampire shtick over and over again?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, back in the Bela Lugosi days, Dracula was a cape wearing, seductor of women.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that very cheesy kind of corny, vibe, as and that's, and not leaving out Max Schreck. He's, cause Max Schreck, being, fucking Nosferatu, Count Orlok. Yeah. Like I said, he's number one. He is the creepiest fucking vampire there ever was. Next to Salem's Lot.
That is a favorite of mine, Nosferatu. That is a favorite of mine. I haven't seen Salem's Lot yet, but I'm getting to it.
Oh shit! That's not only is that a good movie, it's a slow burn. It's a slow burn, but it's a good one.
So I don't mind a slow burn when it's done well. I'm all for it.
All right, yeah. It's like as long as there's a payoff, that you know what I mean. As long as the story is at least gripping, because I've watched a lot of movies that are slow burns. But it's like The Witch. You ever seen The Witch?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's a slow burn. It's a slow burn, but the story is so gripping.
And it gives you a payoff at the end.
The last 10 minutes of that movie is like, I got chills right now thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, Black Phillip, the most satanic goat in the world. The satanic goat of the world. But yeah, it's a little bit of a slow burn. But once it goes into it, shit. What was I talking about? I told you. What was I referencing to?
We're talking about the way they move around and how they're different than most vampire films.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So like, and then you get the movies, that are a little bit later on. Dracula got a little gorier. He was still wearing the cape and whatever. You had namely, Christopher Lee became Dracula and owned it. And then later on, when the 80s started coming in, you did, you started getting the little different, like the the different storylines. It's not a guy living. It's not a Dracula living in a castle. It's a band of misfits, leather jacket wearing motherfuckers that will take you out and not give a shit. You have Near Dark, Lost Boys. And then it just seems like vampire, literature, film, all that has kind of grown a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, it's good to see them do something like, being able to move around a car and be able to, because I don't think of it. Unless I'm missing something. And I'm not. You can just fuck off with Twilight if anybody's got their inner dialogue going right now. Fuck off, because we're not talking about Twilight. We're talking about real vampires. Okay, so don't get me fucked up.
But they sparkle, Chuck. They sparkle.
Yeah. God, I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna be nice. I used to have a whole fucking thing about Twilight, but these days I've got to be careful.
I get it.
But yeah, no, because I can't think of another hardcore vampire movie where they're able to drive during the day.
The only other movie where I've seen it is the film Daybreakers. And that was because they lived in a society where there was technology so they could drive during the day, but their windows were like UV blacked out.
Right.
And gave them like a video screen to see where they were going.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. I know about it.
I recommend it. It's actually a lot of fun.
Okay. I've heard a few people talk about it, actually.
It's got Willem Dafoe and Ethan Hawke, so that's...
Sold.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe's great.
Shit, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Sam Neill.
So good.
Sam Neill.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, he's the villain of the entire movie, so...
Oh, cool. No, I'm kind of sold on this now.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous, but it's also a lot of fun. And it's kind of a different take on vampires. They're still basically the same. They want to feed on humans and this and that, but there's a different take to the story. There's like an impending danger for vampire kind, so you kind of get like them trying to make sure they stick around. So it's cool. There's still the conflict between humans and vampires, but you get a little more where vampires are like, oh, if we don't fix a problem, we're not going to be around anymore. And we basically need to stay in charge of everything. So
see, that kind of, I might get, shit for this, or whatever, but like, I like True Blood. I thought that was because I like the idea of, okay, vampires they're everywhere and people know it and not everybody's okay with it. I mean, of course there's a whole, social thing there with that whole, that whole thing. But it's a fun idea of like, okay, people are vampires and not all of them are bad, Yeah. and cause I like it when different elements are added, sometimes because it really does. It's like, it's the same thing. It's regurgitated over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much with any of the tropes of Universal monster movies. It's like you got to kind of put your little bit of a little spill or a little take on it. If you're gonna do something like that, if you're gonna create something in that realm, then be original or just something that's just fun.
Yeah.
Because vampires and werewolves and all that shit, those are fun. There's not too many werewolf movies that I enjoy that I don't say are just fucking fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like my vampire movies, but again, I tend to lean towards like the Bill Paxton kind of type. You know what I mean? The Lance Henriksen, the brutality.
It's like I enjoyed Interview with the Vampire for what it was, but it's a different movie than what I typically enjoy, which is something like 30 Days of Night or Near Dark, where the vampires are just like, we're here to survive. You don't matter
at all.
We're monsters. We will do what we need to do.
Yeah.
And Near Dark was.
And that's another thing. Because that's another thing about vampire films that I think that personally I got kind of tired of burnout on. Kind of like the whole zombie thing. Walking Dead and all that shit kind of burned me out. But the vampire films, like Interview with the Vampire. That came out, and vampires became all the rage again. And then everybody was expecting, because it was seen by some as a weird love story. And then it was seen as some as a romantic horror film or a period piece or whatever the fuck. And that's fine and good, because I enjoy the movie too. But like, it also was like, okay, it spawned a bunch of beautiful vampires, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, Twilight years later after done. Anne Rice, she was a great writer. I only read a couple of her books because I'm like, can I read something that doesn't involve vampires?
Yeah.
Because like, you mentioned 30 Days of Night, and those vampires are disgusting. They're brutal as all shit.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that movie.
They're
both of them, actually.
Animalistic. They kind of reminded me of what Nosferatu might have been had it not been a silent movie done in Germany. It might have been a little more like, had it been done later,
right?
Orlok would have been more animalistic, I think, at some points.
Yeah.
So it kind of had a bit of that, and then it had just the cold callous of Jesse from Near Dark, where he's like, you don't fucking matter.
Right.
We're here. Yeah. Like when he's just standing at the door, just with a smirk on his face in the bar, just looking at him like, none of you are leaving.
Yeah.
You guys don't matter.
Yeah.
Like, we just need food. You don't matter to any of us. We're going to be here long after you're dead, and it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
It's just like, God.
That is the moment in the movie, like, in the bar where shit's already gone down and everybody that's left is kind of realizing that I'm not getting out alive, because he does have that smirk on his face. And, because Lance Henriksen he's a very, he always plays a very sinister character. He has that look, and,
there's an intensity.
Yeah. It's his eyes. And he does have that grin where you're like, is he grinning because he's happy, or is he grinning because he's getting ready to kill you?
Yeah. It's like you
both.
never know what it is. And it could be both. You never know where he's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate this movie so much. I remember before I'd even heard of it. This very same copy that I'm holding. I think maybe, no, I could be wrong. I don't know. I think it's the same copy. Kmart, when I was probably about 14 or 15, Kmart used to do I don't think that Kmart's exist anymore, but, no. Kmart, when because they kind of slowed down because, Walmart became the king and wiped everybody out.
Yeah.
So like every Halloween, go to the Halloween aisle, they would have horror VHSs, which Walmart did it too, but Kmart always had better ones, or the ones that like I'd never heard of. And I remember looking through the movies, and I remember Candyman was in there a few times, and I think Aliens, and there was like a couple other, the usual tropes, Halloween, all that stuff. And there was like one copy of Near Dark in there, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I had no idea what it was, and I didn't get it. Well, I talked to a buddy of mine a couple of days later, that was like, oh, dude, Near Dark, you totally got to watch that movie. So I ended up going back up to Kmart and buying it. I'm pretty sure this is the same copy. I don't know. I never know anymore. I'm getting old and forget, but yeah, it just, from the minute that I watched it, I was like, shit, okay. All right, I can get behind this. It just had, this killer. It just has this killer vibe to it, man. And then the whole, of course, we're jumping all over the place here, but something else that they did that was interesting was they cured it. And usually in vampire films, what's the way to cure being a vampire? You have to kill your maker, right? And in this one, that is not the case. That is not the case at all.
It's a rather simple fix when you think about it.
Right. It's clever.
It's just a blood transfusion.
It's a blood transfusion. Keith Richards couldn't be wrong.
I went, wait, this movie's just saying we can cure vampirism with a blood transfusion? I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of goofy because it's like, I don't know how much that works, but it's a fun idea. And I'm glad they went with that. Actually, rewatching it last night, for some reason, I forgot about that part. Mm-hmm. I was like, how does this movie? And I kind of forgot, but watching, I was like, oh yeah. And like, I actually like it. It's kind of cheesy, whatever, but it's, got the redneck dad, the redneck family or whatever that, happens to have an area to where they can, put old
they show you in the beginning,
rehab.
He's like a farm vet or something, like a ranch vet or something like that.
Yeah.
And he had the area set up to be able to do a transfusion because his son asked him, like, you ever done a blood transfusion? And there's just cuts to him doing it. Like, sure, we can do this.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. It's kind of goofy, but it's still different enough where you're like, huh, okay.
Yeah.
Which it does make sense because if Caleb couldn't kill someone to sustain his hunger or satiate his hunger as a vampire, he wouldn't be able to kill his maker, especially since it was May, who he was in love with.
Right.
Which I'm going to say, that whole thing kind of went so fast. Like, she just looked at him. He was like, oh, I'm sprung.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm all over you. I'm like, dude.
It makes sense because of the character of what he was. Because Caleb, because like me being from the South and stuff, like I know that guy. You know what I mean? The guy that like falls head over heels as soon as he like meets a chick. And some people be like, oh, that's no, that's how some of us Southern guys are.
Okay.
Especially them, because his character reminds me of the kind of guy that's like old school. He wants to hold the door open and hold the chair, pull the chair out for the woman and stuff, which you should be respectful and all that. That Southern hospitality, whatever. But he also comes off like not innocent, but naive.
Yeah. I was gonna say he's very naive about the world.
Small town country boy. Hasn't really seen much. He just knows horses and fields and, maybe the occasional beer at a bar. And then he gets introduced to this woman that, like anything, you meet the right one, they change your whole world. And it's sometimes for the good, sometimes it's for the bad. And she apparently just, had what it took to, spring that motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah. She roped him in good.
Yeah, but
I want to.
Yeah.
I do like the effect. I'm like I said, we're all over the place here, but I like the effect of when they're in the sun and they just start smoking.
Yes. Yeah. I love
and
that.
It's just agonizing.
Yeah.
It's like there's an
it.
end coming. And you're just like, oh, he's that opening scene with Caleb where he's running through the field while trying to run. After she turned him.
His face is burning and shit.
And he's burning and there's just this billowing smoke coming off of him. It's just like, oh, God. You can just imagine. Like, ugh.
Like the pain. Like,
yeah.
It's like, if you ever, burnt yourself, like on the stove, like imagine that times 100.
Oof.
You know what I mean? Like, just like, there's something about burning flesh, that just, one, it stinks. Two, that's very, very painful because like, let's say that if you're a vampire and you go out and you're out in the sun long enough to start smoking and to almost to the point of catching flame, regardless, you're going to have, your face is going to well up for a minute before you heal yourself.
Yeah.
Or if you have to feed in order to heal yourself, you might look like, Dracula did in Renfield for a minute, Mm-hmm. Painful to watch. But I'm glad they went that route with that. I'm glad they did that. Cause like, it's always been a thing. Vampires will come out in day, sunlight kills them, all that. And you have the ones where like they automatically blow up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is cheesy. And then, you have the ones that they slowly burn, and then eventually just go into flame.
Yeah. There's some that just disappear. They just fade away. I'm like, that's a cop out.
Yeah. Yeah. And this one just, I think it was perfect of like the idea of like, okay. And it also, it took away the flying trope and the changing into a bat.
It also took away the bearing the fangs and hissing, which I get is something that like kind of came from like the Christopher Lee era of vampire movies.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. You didn't know they were vampires until they started feeding on blood. You're like, oh, okay, they are vampires.
Yeah. Now, Bill Paxton, his character in the bar scene, he kind of changes.
Oh yeah.
When, his fingers get a little bit, evil, like they look a little twisted and crooked looking, and his fingernails are real pointy and all that shit. And I want to feel, part of me says that he has fangs in that scene, but I could be wrong.
He might, but it's not so pronounced. Whereas a lot of vampire movies, like the fangs get super long, or they have to hold on a shot of them burying them at somebody. It's like, these are just like, if you see them, they're there. Yeah, they have fangs. Like
the scene in Monster Squad with Dracula holding the little girl up. Give me the amulet, you bitch. It's like, what? Like, the hissing thing that has always been a thing. Usually the hissing comes when somebody holds a cross up to them. Yeah. They're like, get it away from me. So like, I like the fact that they cut some of that kind of that shit out, and just like, oh no, they're the undead. They feed on blood. That's all you kind of need. You don't need them turning into a fucking bat, which, I mean, it's cool in some movies, but it's less cheesy if they don't. You know what I mean? Yeah,
because we all know they could transform into things like that, but we don't need to see it in every film.
No, not at all. Like, but I definitely appreciate the fact they don't do that. But they don't hiss or do really in that shit in Near Dark, do they?
The only thing that makes them vampires is they can't be out in sunlight and they drink blood, and they're just cold. You're like, okay, those three things, they're vampires. They didn't need to hiss, show their fangs, or like do anything vampire-like.
Yeah.
You just figured it out from the things they showed you. Like, look, here's A, B, and C. That's all you need. There's no theatrics. There's no capes. They're not, I'll suck your blood or anything.
Right. Yeah. No. 1, ha, ha, ha. 2, ha, ha, ha. Sesame Street shit. And he was always my favorite.
I do want to say, going back real quick to Homer, the old man in a child's body.
Yeah.
He's got one of the more disturbing character arcs in the film when he grabs Caleb's little sister and is like, she's mine. Mm-hmm. She's going to stay with me. And he's like, I'm going to turn her. So I have someone that's my age, that's around my age for eternity.
Yeah.
I'm lonely. I'm over this. I'm like, dude, this is fucked up.
It's pretty demented.
He's just like, tells him flat out. He's like, no, she's mine. I'm keeping her. It's like, whoa. All right. Yeah. Okay. Shit.
I mean, it is kind of a very disturbing take on it, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And you still kind of feel for him in a way, but you're like, this ain't the way to go about it, brother.
Yeah. I mean, because like, what else? What else is he gonna do? You know what I mean? So he would have to get a girl of his age.
Yeah, I like their meeting too when he sees her at the soda machine. And he's like, oh, and she just blows him off initially, like, it's rude to stare.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, good for you, like standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
He's like, you want to come watch TV? And she's like, is it a color television? Or she's like so sassy. I'm like, you probably still shouldn't be going with the kid, but
Yeah, through time we have learned that if there's a hotel room or something like that, that something bad's going to happen. and you probably shouldn't follow strangers into rooms. I mean, like, Last House on the Left, following people to a hotel, then you end up with, a bad time.
Yeah. Devil's Rejects.
Devil's Rejects.
Don't talk to the hot chick near the ice machine.
That's pretty much what, well, there's a lot of others too, when it comes to the hotels, but yeah, it's the truth. Like, so because you when you're watching it, and especially for the first time, you're kind of like, oh fuck, where's this going? And like, the time they're not going to really be too bad about it, but I think it was a perfect full circle. Her and the dad were out looking for him, or looking for Caleb, and then it just so happens they end up meeting. And I wonder if because there's a part where, of course, they go get the dad and they bring him in there, which is who's the guy that plays him again?
Tim Thomerson, who
is also many people probably realize this, but he was Doll Man. Remember Doll Man?
Yes, I have not seen Doll Man, but I know of Doll Man, and I know he was in Doll Man, as well as Trancers.
Oh yeah, Trancers, and was it Doll Man versus the Demonic Toys?
Yeah. I still have to go down that road. I went down an Evil Bong rabbit hole not long ago, and
it's so good.
I was like, okay, I got to back off the full moon stuff for a bit before I can dive into some of the other stuff.
No, I love the Evil Bong movies. They're so stupid, but I do love Full Moon and all that. Which is funny though is, when I first saw this, what I recognized him from was Who's Harry Crumb, the John Candy comedy. Okay, because he plays the other man to Annie Potts, who was very hot back then. But yeah, that's, it's kind of, I can point out just, but like I said, I can look at people like, oh, they're in that movie, but it's just kind of funny when you think about like all the people that are actually in this movie. Yeah. And like, it's like, then they actually did, they've been there, done that and all that shit. We've gone through, everybody that's been in it and all the movies they've been in, and it's all been good,
yeah.
Although I don't really know what his career is now. I don't know, is he even still alive?
He's still alive. He's 77 years old. I'm looking up his IMDb right now because I'm wanting to confirm that I know what movie. Like, there it is. Who's Harry Crumb? See, I forgot he was in that.
He's a bit part in it, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Iron Eagle. He was the father in Iron Eagle. That's where I know him from.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. God, I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
I used to watch that movie all the time growing up. It was that and The Last Starfighter were two movies that was like, yeah.
The Last Starfighter. Who's in that? Anybody?
That is Lance Guest. It's directed by Nick Castle. Oh God, what is not? Oh, she was in Night of the Comet. Not the blonde, but the other one. God, what is her name? I'm gonna have to look it up now.
Yeah, I can't remember her name either. Although Night of the Comet, as a kid, that was like one of my favorite movies. It used to come on USA Up All Night on occasions.
Catherine Mary Stewart.
Okay.
And then Dan O'Hurley, he played Greg, and Robert Preston was Centauri. Yeah, Last Starfighter is one that I grew up on. That was the science fiction, spaceship movie I grew up on before I saw Star Wars. I grew up on Last Starfighter.
Okay.
So it holds a special place for me.
I feel you. Yeah. I was never much anything that had to do with space, just about. I didn't care. Like, unless it involved like disgusting aliens and shit, like Predator and aliens and all that shit. Like, I was so picky about science fiction. I'm a little more open minded to that aspect, but you've got to give me a good story. You know what I mean?
I've never been a huge sci-fi person, but that was one of the things, like, I saw it as a kid and was like, oh, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, later on, I get into Predator. And funny enough, isn't 87 the same year Predator came out?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I am double checking because there's been a weird coincidence lately. I've noticed with some of our episodes that there's a lot of stuff that comes from 87. Yeah, the first Predator was 1987. So
Wow.
the same year as Near Dark and the Lost Boys, we got Predator.
A lot of good movies came out around that time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I was born in '84, and I'd say right there there was a lot of good movies that came out around that time, and then moving on, like you had '84, and then you moved way, right to the ass end of the '80s, and that was like a lot of like your really good horror films and horror based films and whatnot came around that time, you know.
Oh yeah, it was a big time
beat
for
the '80s.
Big time for horror. I almost said for budget. Big time for horror. It was a big time for action, and then some of those crossover horror action, kind of like Predator.
Truth.
It was just a crazy time where all this stuff came out. And then, like we were talking about, there was the vampire movies, and there was also like a lot of horror comedy in the '80s. And speaking of vampires, is the movie Once Bitten with Jim Carrey.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a favorite of mine.
Which flips it around. You don't have the male trying to seduce a female. You've got the female seducing the male.
Yeah, and you don't bite him on the neck. You bite him on the inner thigh.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, I was so like I watched that movie way younger than I should have.
Same.
And it went over my head a lot of things. And until I got older, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with the guy, like, you're a girl and I'm a guy. And all that shit, like and then like realizing some of the sexual innuendos in that movie as a kid, I didn't pick up on. You know? Just like
same.
Ace Ventura, I didn't pick up on some of the things that went on in that until I got older. And I was like,
You're like,
okay.
okay, there's a whole other level to this I didn't discern.
Yeah.
Once Bitten was one of those where I saw it later. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like the way his friends were like, oh, you're this, so stay away. I'm like, whoa, like,
yeah.
Okay.
That's a fun one too.
Yeah. Cleavon Little is great in that, man. It sucks that we lost him so early.
Right.
He's just, he only plays her butler and, caretaker, but he's
one of the best characters.
Man, so good. It's like, now I want to go back and watch Blazing Saddles again.
No shit, man. No shit.
I know people will say, oh, it's problematic. It's like you realize they were using humor to poke at the problem, right?
That's exactly,
And like Mel Brooks was like, do you realize how stupid you sound saying stuff like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he wasn't above making fun of Jews, and he's Jewish.
Exactly. It's like Dave Chappelle. It's like no one's safe. And the thing is, though, is in Blazing Saddles, again, it wasn't poking fun at black people or anything like that. It was definitely poking at like the stupidity of how people can perceive race.
Yeah.
And all that, people kind of, how people are these days. They kind of, they take one thing and they run with it, until it just becomes, a snowball effect. And it's like that snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's like, hey, can you watch something and just have fun with it? Can you just watch something and enjoy it for what it is?
Exactly.
Like, I got a buddy of mine. Okay. I got just real quick. I got a buddy of mine that, he was always like, he wanted to be a fucking filmmaker from the time that he was young and first watched his first movie, that kind of guy, Okay. He was big into Ghostbusters and all that shit. Mm-hmm. And now he doesn't like Ghostbusters. He thinks it's problematic because of how Venkman is towards women. And I'm like, he's not even really that bad and like whatever. But the other thing is he made a comment about Beetlejuice. And he said that Beetlejuice was too sleazy, basically. And I'm like, Beetlejuice is supposed to be sleazy.
That's the whole point of that character.
Like, that's a character. Exactly. Underline that word, America. Character. You have to have, like, okay, like in the genre of books that I write, okay, extreme, splatterpunk, whatever the fuck. People give our genre so much shit, okay? It's too violent, it's too vile, too disgusting, blah, 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 blah. There must be something wrong with you when you write this shit. There's something wrong with you if you enjoy reading this shit. And the thing is, though, is like you have to know what kind of emotion that you need to have.
Mhm.
You know, so you create characters for movies and for literature and all around the board. So you know if you're supposed to like them. That's how we have our villains. That's why these villains are so horrible.
Yeah.
In movies, because we don't want to like them. We're not supposed to like them. They're supposed to be heinous. There's a reason why, like, this guy did horrible things over here, to these kids or whatever the fuck. And it's like, you're supposed to hate this guy so much. Like, so when he dies, that's the payoff.
Exactly.
When he gets his, it's the payoff. And it's just like, people just fucking, they want to bitch and whine, and they forget that characters, they're what make up all this shit. If you have these boring ass fucking characters that don't have their own fucking minds and they're all the same, and they're all like, oh, we love everyone, and then what do you have? You have the dullest fucking movie in the world. You have everyone is a fucking marching ant, and I fucking hate that shit. Sorry. I don't mean to.
No, I totally
don't mean to, dive too deep there, but
There's that side, and then there's the other side where you have people who are like, oh, I totally identify with the villain. And you're like, that's not the point. Like, I heard a story years ago, Mary Harron, who directed American Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
She said she would go around to like conventions and people would be like, oh, I love your movie. I identify so much with Patrick Bateman. I'm a lot like him. And she's like, you realize that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you're not supposed to identify with him. He's inherently what's wrong. He's the villain of the story. Yeah. He's not someone you should identify with and be like, oh, I'm just like him, and be proud of that. Yeah. She's like, that's a huge problem. You should probably look into that. And she goes, the fact that they were so proud to like be on the same page as Patrick Bateman, she goes, it baffled me because it's not right. He's not someone to look up to. I'm like, no, thank you.
For so many reasons.
Like, I get cheering in like a slasher movie like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. You're kind of rooting for Freddy at a point, but you're not going, I totally identify with Freddy and I'm going to murder children too in my boiler room. No. What we're having fun with is the fact that it's a campy character.
Yeah.
With Jason, it's, hey, stupid teenagers getting killed. We're having fun with it.
Yeah.
So anyone who wants to be like Roger Ebert on me right now and be like, oh, well, you, what's wrong? Fuck you. Okay. I enjoy horror movies. I have fun. It's escapism. It's a different form of entertainment that we enjoy. It's just horror movies.
Exactly.
So are there problems with earlier horror movies and some of the content? Of course, but you can say that about any movie.
Oh yeah. I mean, you mean in Siskel and Ebert? Fuck those guys. They're both dead. They don't matter. The thing, like when I would watch them on Sunday mornings, okay, because they would come on. They were early on Sundays, and I'd watch them. I think before I went to church, because I used to get made to get up uber early in the mornings on Sundays, and I'd watch them, and pretty much whatever they hated, I would watch. Yeah, I'd like, because like they just and they hated horror movies. Like they had this whole thing about Friday the 13th. Like just being like one of the worst. Like Friday the 13th Part 2, they really hated. I remember reading what was the fat one's name? Was that Ebert?
That was Ebert, yeah.
Yeah. I read one of his books years ago. One of his movie books. And man, he gave so many horror movies that I love the fucking turkey, dude. Like he just Friday the 13th Part 2, he was just talking about how when he went and saw it in the theaters and people were all, clapping for, these horrible scenes. And it just shows the depravity of society and da-da-da-da. And it's like, dude, you should have fucking lived a little longer.
Yeah.
That bothers you.
It's like, seriously, you got such a rage on for horror movies. It's like, what is so wrong with your life that this is what both of them sitting there and just, these filmmakers are disgusting and anyone involved with this movie, it's like, okay, one, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Two, you're a movie critic. You're supposed to critique, not bash people for doing something. You can be like, hey, this isn't really my pleasure. I don't really care for it. I give it, a 0 out of 5, but form your own opinion.
Yeah.
Instead, they're like, if you watch this, you're what's wrong with society. Like, no, fuck off. You're what's wrong with society because you're trying to dictate what other people enjoy. So fuck you.
I'm pretty sure that wherever he's at, I'm pretty sure that Friday the 13th Part 2 is playing on repeat. I hope so. I hope that he is in fucking like in his own little hell. Fuck that guy. Yeah, they're also the same reason why a very underrated cartoon that I also used to watch, and it used to come on the same channel on ABC at Siskel and Ebert. I want to say early, like because it was like early mornings when that came on. But The Critic with fucking John Lovitz.
Okay, yeah.
You remember that one? It stinks.
Mm-hmm. I remember The Critic. I used to watch it all the time.
It's a great cartoon show because it's so ridiculous, but like he was totally poking fun at all the critics and shit like that. Oh and yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why that show didn't make it like it should have. But yeah, that's always going to be a favorite cartoon of mine. But yeah, fuck Siskel and Ebert. They don't know they didn't know what was good.
It's why I don't listen to critics on a lot of things, and to veer off even further, I bought a video game not long ago. It's a AEW wrestling game called Fight Forever.
Nice.
I enjoy the game. I have fun with it. It was always intended to be like an arcade style throwback to like the N64 wrestling games.
Okay.
And people, as soon as it came out, people were just shitting all over it. This game's trash. It needs to be more like this game. So I made a comment like, the game's fine. I play it. I have fun with it. You guys wanting it to be like this game over here. Well, as soon as they did that, you'd have been like, well, why couldn't it be its own thing? Why is it so much like this? You're never happy. Just don't listen to critics and form your own opinion. They're like, oh, so critics don't matter, huh? I'm like, no, they really fucking don't.
No.
I'm like, if you're going to allow a critic to tell you what you should and shouldn't like, then you're kind of the problem because you should be able to form your own opinion. If a game or a movie or something doesn't appeal to you, you don't have to buy it. That's the beauty of having free will. You don't have to follow the masses and buy something and go, now I'm pissed off that I paid money. Nobody forced you to.
Yeah.
Nobody forced you to watch that movie or buy that product or watch that TV show or listen to that song. You made that choice.
That's
so
true.
You're the only one at fault.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, it was like, you can, it's kind of funny the way you worded that, and you said that, and I mean that, and you can actually use that as an example for a lot of things, because there's especially now, don't mean to get into social issues, but kind of can't get away from it now.
Yeah,
it's like everybody wants to follow what everybody else is doing, and it still goes with film now in theaters. I mean, like there's movies that I see in group, in Facebook groups and shit all the time where, somebody posted like, oh, well, I saw The Nun 2 and I loved it. It was like so good, blah, blah, blah. And then you have like 50 people in that comment section just tearing into that person because they love this movie. Everybody, I mean, because there's a lot of movies, and as I've gotten older, I've tried my best not to be a fucking elitist. Is that the word for it? Same. Yes, there are like I have to bite my tongue sometimes. Like, there was before we got on here, there was a post on one of the horror pages I'm a part of, and somebody had said that they were asking if anybody else felt the way that they did about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, and thinking that it's better than the original. And I was going to comment, and then I stopped because me, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions, but my opinion is that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, is beautiful. It's one of the best movies ever made. It's my favorite movie. But knowing that and how I feel about it, if I go in there and I originally go in there to like make just like, oh, well, I love the original more than the remake. No, that's not what happens. What happens is I go in there and I say, oh, well, I love the original more than the remake. And then I end up going with a little further with it, giving my reasons why, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns into a fucking full on argument. It happens all the fucking time because nobody's allowed to do or think how they want to. Even if somebody may not have the correct way of thinking, because there is a lot of people out there that don't have the right way of thinking with a lot of things. But that's their prerogative. That's their life. Let them lead it. You know, just because somebody doesn't agree with you doesn't mean they're a piece of shit. Everybody's got their reasons for things. You know what I mean? Like, I hate a lot of people and I hate a lot of things. And I have to zip my fucking mouth, because if I don't, I get canceled. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it again. Yeah. Right. So, like, in that same regard of what you're talking about, and it's just like, yeah, like, you don't always have to march with everybody else. You know, the popular people are saying that this movie's better. You know, saying that this video game's better. Saying that this you know, this blah 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 blah. You know, and those sheep are going, bah, you know what? You're right, bah. And there's a lot of things these days out there where people are doing the same fucking thing with everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, this person, even if the facts aren't correct, people will follow them because, oh, well, it's the trend. And unfortunately, at a certain point, going back to the movie aspect of it, at a certain point, horror movies were the most hated movies by critics. Yeah. They weren't popular. If you liked horror movies, you were a fucking freak. And I lived that for a big portion of my growing up. And then at a certain point, horror movies got popular again. And I was no longer a freak for that. I was a freak for other reasons, but I wasn't a freak for being a horror fan anymore, you know? Yeah. And in recent days, I mean, we checked it the other day on Video Store Clerks. Number one right now is in the box office is Nun 2. And, you know, and for the longest time, it was Barbie. So, you know, of course it's getting into, you know, Halloween. So everybody wants to go see horror movies, whatever the fuck. But it also shows that a horror film, no matter, because I haven't seen Nun 2 or not, no matter how good or bad it may be, a horror movie is number one in the box office. And that is something to appreciate. And I think it's happened a couple of times this past year, maybe the last couple of years. I can't remember what movies, but I know like I don't know if Terrifier 2 ever made it to number one, but it got fucking close. If it didn't.
Yeah, you know it got close. It got close. It was huge. And I know there are some people that will discount the fact that Terrifier did anything and they're like, eh. It's like, and that's fine. You're allowed to have your opinion. Where I draw the line is when you start critiquing the people and shitting on people who enjoy it. My philosophy now is, because I would do the same. If somebody said, oh, I haven't seen it, or I don't like it, I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. Why don't you explain? Now I'm like, you're allowed your opinion. I understand that. Because I was guilty of doing some gatekeeping and stuff like that. But now my philosophy is, don't yuck somebody else's yum. That's
true. That is something I've had to learn.
It's like, I might have my opinions on something and be like, I don't really care for it, but I'm not going to sit there and go, well, you're a piece of shit because you like this movie. Right. It's like, I don't know you as a person, so I can't ultimately make a decision. I might be like, hey, we have differing opinions.
Yeah. Well, but I'll tell you, actually, here's a good little story that goes along with this. I know we've been on almost 2 hours now, but it's fine with me.
It's what happens.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. But you know, what actually had me changing how I was with people, and opinions and all that was, I guess it was about, well, I mean, I'd already been trying not to be that way, but what really was the kicker was a few months ago. I guess it was probably about 4 months ago. Mm-hmm. There was a guy that was posted on those horror groups, and he was reviewing movies. Like, he would just post his, you know, oh, well, I just watched this movie, blah, blah. And he is someone that is just now getting into horror movies. And he happened to shit on a couple of my favorites. And for whatever reason, I was not in a very good mood and figured I would take it out on him. Not the right way to do it by any means. I gave me and this guy had a kind of a back and forth for a minute until he made some things come to light to me that made me go, oh, I didn't even think about that. You know, and I felt uber shitty for how I was about it. And I even, I even told him, I was like, man, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. You know, cause he was like, man, I've just now got into this stuff. I've never seen these movies before, you know, so I just thought it'd be nice, and also finding out the guy was also, on the spectrum of autism. And, and having a son who is also autistic, like, you know, it was like, you really got to think about it. Cause you don't know, you know, it's like, okay, well, this guy doesn't, All right, fine. So instead, I apologized. He accepted my apology, and our conversation that originally started out as an argument that just made me look like a huge cock ass, turned into, hey man, if you didn't like this, then you might like this. What are you into? You know, and I gave the guy like some recommendations and shit like that, and like it was all good. But I felt bad about that ever since it happened. Mm-hmm. So I actually use that as a reminder whenever I feel the need to go on and drill somebody about what horror movie or whatever the fuck. It's like, man, you know, dude's just now getting into shit. You know, he's you know, he got kind of a late start for whatever reason on it. And, you know, just instead of being a dick, recommend. You know, I love getting people into music, and I love getting people into horror movies. I've got a couple of my friends, one in particular, that when she comes over, we watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies because I'm trying to get her through all these franchises. She hasn't seen a shit ton. She hasn't seen a bunch of like the classics. And she wasn't really a horror fan until she started hanging out with me and my ex. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so I prefer to be that way, to show people, you know, you can watch, you know, check this one out. All right. You know, whatever the fuck, you know, that's the better way to be about it. Don't be a dickhead, folks. Don't be a dickhead.
Yeah.
You know,
I had somebody.
Don't be a menace to society while drinking your juice in the hood.
Exactly. Don't do that. And real quick, I know you're not a huge wrestling fan. But
I used to be, though.
I made a comment not long ago about the whole CM Punk AEW thing, backstage stuff. And I made a very unbiased, you know, from what I saw, it was very unbiased, straight down the middle, not taking sides on either, you know, of the argument, trying to play it straight down the middle as I try to do, like, hey, did both parties in this act stupid? Yeah. But ultimately, you know, blah, 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 whatever I said. And immediately getting people going, oh, you're on this side, da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
I'm like, dude, that's not even what I said, for one. Like, you have to go and defend yourself to somebody who's just, they're cherry picking bits of your argument to fit what they want to do.
Exactly.
And I was like, not what I said, but okay, you can do whatever you want. And then they kept coming back, and I was like, you know what? And then somebody else finally stepped in and went, you took a civil conversation and turned it into an argument. Why? Because you had nothing better to do?
Exactly.
Like, that's exactly what it is. Some people just have nothing better to do. And I'm not accusing you of that. I know where you were coming from because I felt the same way and I've refrained.
Right. Yeah.
My biggest thing is when people start getting facts wrong about horror movies, I'm like, I want to correct them so bad. Like, that's incorrect.
Yeah.
Like, they'll get an actor's name wrong. I'm like, that's no. Or they'll get a fact wrong. I'm like, don't.
Yeah.
Don't. Maybe they're new. Maybe they don't know. They might not have the encyclopedic knowledge that you have in your weird horror-loving brain.
I correct people when it comes out of that. I will correct people, but I do it in a nice manner. And, you know, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I definitely agree. But it wasn't that actor. It was this. You know, like something like that. Like, I'm not an asshole when it comes out of that. But I will say this, though. It's kind of funny talking about the CM Punk shit. I don't know the whole ordeal with CM Punk. I really don't know much about it. I'm not a fan. But somebody had made a post. This was actually earlier today. That I saw a post that somebody had posted about how they still thought that no matter what, CM Punk is a great person and one of the best wrestlers and and all this shit and all that. And I went to the comments, and there were people that were talking about how, CM Punk should be in movies, in more movies, because he's a natural at it. No, he isn't. He sucked ass. You ever see that fucking movie with a girl in the attic or whatever the fuck it was called?
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, dude,
I've wanted to check it out just for the story, not so much him.
The story is mediocre. It's weird, and it's worth one watch. But CM Punk and a few other people I've talked to who watched it agreed. He is horrible. He is not a good actor. And the thing is, I wanted to make these comments. But the other thing that made me refrain, also not knowing the full situation, all that, I just know how I don't like CM Punk, was the fact of who posted it. It was one of the Soska twins.
Okay.
And because she also mentioned in the post that he's a good friend, all that shit. Now, if I hadn't noticed it was Jen Soska, I don't know if I would have commented or not. But me noticing who it was, I'm like, I'm a big fan of those girls. I'm a big fan of their movies. I do not want them to, they don't know who the fuck I am from shit. Probably, most likely, 100% probably not. But I don't want them. I don't want them to know me as an asshole. That's on social media being a dickhead.
No, I totally get it. Yeah, I saw him in the Rabid remake, and I was like, he was fine.
That is
he's in it for
remake.
Like, yeah.
I like the Rabid remake.
I liked the movie. It was good. I thought it did enough. Yeah, he not for long. He's not in it for very long.
No, he isn't. He isn't. No. I actually like that better than the original.
Yeah, the original. And I really enjoyed the original, but I'm like, this one is just a little more.
Yeah.
Visceral.
Yeah.
I don't want to say more twisted because David Cronenberg has done some really fucked up, twisted shit. And Rabid is kind of twisted. But I want to say it's more visceral. There's more to it, like, oh, that's even more gross than the original.
It also has more pace. It has a better pace than the original. Because that was my trope. Because I know, don't be fucked up. Cronenberg's a genius. That guy is like the king of body horror. And
the Brood is really fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Like have you ever seen Dead Ringers with Jeremy Irons?
Yes.
Like that's I gave that a rewatch a couple weeks ago.
Ooh.
And that is an intense movie. And it's like it's one of those where like it has slow moments, but you're already kind of intrigued. These twins that they're gynecologists, and they're they trick women, and one of them does he does and all that shit. Like it's a fucked up movie. It's a good watch, and it's not for everybody. But that ending is fucking just heartbreaking and depressing. But it's a great ending to it. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I want to say, I think, and I'm sure you've seen the movie American Mary.
Oh, I love that movie.
The more I watch it, because I've seen it like several times now, it's one of Leanne's favorites. She loves the movie. But the more I watch it, the more I see there's little touches of Cronenberg's body horror with the body modification stuff, and how it goes a little bit further than just, and then her, taking out the professor and kind of taking parts off of him and doing this, like it's so Cronenberg to an extent. I'm like, it's not the body horror of something transforming. It's the body horror of taking things away and changing things.
Yeah.
Like not the transformation like in The Fly or say Videodrome. It's a different type, but you can see where Cronenberg really influenced the Soskas in a way.
Oh yeah. I mean, Rabid. I mean, that makes perfect sense to them, them remaking that, But yeah, I really love those girls. They made speaking of wrestling, they made the sequel to See No Evil.
I still have not seen it.
It's better than the first, dude.
The first one I saw it, I was like, this is fine,
but it was nothing.
It's kind of run of the mill.
Yeah, and the sequel, the Soskas, they got Daniel Harris in there, and of course Kane's back. And then old girl from American Mary, I always forget her fucking name.
Kathryn Isabel.
Yeah, also Ginger Snaps and Jason versus Freddy, and a slew of others.
So much. She's done so much work.
Yeah, sorry, I gotta tickle my throat.
You're good. You're good.
But yeah, no, the Soskas are, which I'm waiting on more from them. They don't put out movies quick enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they pick and choose what they want to do. I think they're very, how do I want to put this? They're very, I can't even think of the word right now.
What I love about them is they are completely splatterpunk in film.
Yeah.
They go with the sexual aspect of stuff. They go to the gut with gore, with blood and just imagery and story plot that makes you kind of itch or feel gross.
Yeah.
And I they're great.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was going to say they're very methodical and picky about what they do, I think.
Yes.
Like they won't just take anything.
Yeah.
It's
like they put out this comic book. What was it? Nun sluts or something like that. And you can't really, it's something about you can't find it anymore. But like they had it out like as a limited edition for like a shit ton of money.
wow.
Yeah, for like $300 or $400 a piece or something for this shit. I'm like, God, it was something like that. Like, don't quote me on it, but it was something ridiculous. I was like, well, damn, that kind of sucks, but they're also very sexy women in a very sinister way.
I can see that. that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Near Dark.
Near Dark's a great movie.
I want to say, there was one scene, they're like walking up over this ridge at night, and there's just this fog. It kind of rolls through, and they just kind of walk through it, so they're silhouetted by the fog.
Yeah.
It's such a great shot.
Yeah, it is.
And then they did sort of a callback to that towards the end of the film, where Caleb's sort of riding the horse in the town, and he comes through the same kind of fog, and he's just silhouetted as he's riding his horse in.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of a good revisit to that shot. Because it's not the exact same shot, but it's very similar. It's sort of a callback. And I don't know if it was intentional. I'm sure it was. I mean, Kathryn Bigelow has directed great films.
Yeah.
But I just thought those were cool touches.
Oh,
just little things like that.
There's a lot of good shots in Near Dark. A lot of them. Which also was stuff like with the horse and all that. Like you could almost do like redo this movie as a Western.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, this could definitely be a Western.
Yeah,
you just,
it has that same feel.
Set it way back in the day. You could use the same actors and it would have been just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just thinking about that. I'm glad we were on the same page that it could be a Western, because I was thinking about that at the end. I'm like, this would have been a good Western.
Yeah, it just has that same kind of feel. There's some movies like that just had that, like, it's almost kind of like Devil's Rejects. Like in another time, that could have been a Western too.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you think about this, you have the band of drifters who nobody knows coming into town and then just terrorizing people and then taking off to the next spot when they got to move on.
Yeah.
So it's very close to those old Westerns where a drifter would come in, do what they need to do, move on to the next town.
Yeah.
It's just, in this case, it would be vampires and not just a man with no name.
Right. Yeah. The man with no name. the running theme in a lot of the good Westerns.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely. Like Near Dark, man, it's just, it's one that I feel like it still stands. It stands the test of time. Like it's one of those you can watch now and it's still good. Yeah. It's still entertaining. It's not like there's not really, I don't really think there's that much cheese in it. I think it's a fairly serious movie.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of humor through it. It's a serious film. I don't want to say serious as in like it's something that's like a critical thinking piece. It's not some highbrow film, but it's serious in tone, as in like this isn't a fun. It's a fun watch, but this isn't a humorous vampire movie. This is what are they gonna do next?
Yeah. Like the only
horrific.
Humor, yeah, but the only humor you get is like Bill Paxton's tormenting, yeah, chaos basically when it comes down.
Yeah, that's a good way. He's just chaos. That's all he is.
Yeah, which I think that's how I would be if I was in a clan of vampires like that. I think I would be kind of like Bill Paxton.
Yeah, because he's just kind of like, nobody can beat me up. You can't kill me when you shoot me. Yeah. So he goes, if the only thing that's going to kill me is sunlight, fuck you. It's the middle of the night. I'll rip all your throats out and I'll dance on your corpses as I'm leaving the bar.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All the good things,
is he was laughing the entire time he's tormenting these guys. He's laughing, having a ball. So you can tell you're like, okay, you might have been unhinged before. And then once you realized what you could do as a vampire, you're like, oh, I don't have to care about anything. And I can be as crazy and chaotic as I want to be.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like, in The Crow when Eric Draven, realizes that he's kind of unstoppable,
Yeah.
It's the same kind of factor. And that also is appealing. How would you act if you were a vampire?
Yeah.
If you were in that situation, would you be a Caleb or would you be a Jesse? You know what I mean? Like it's I don't know, just one of those fun things to think about with movies like this,
Now, I want to ask you a question because I was looking for like posters and artwork for this film to create the social media stuff I'm going to put up.
Mm-hmm.
I found one poster for this, and I want to know if it's very Twilight-esque.
Gross.
So it shows Caleb and May, right? And Caleb is very pale, but his lips are like a prominent color and his eyes are like stand out. And May is very like her blonde hair, and she's got like this, she's not pale, but she's got like this golden tone to her skin. I'm like, y'all really did the Twilight thing to this fucking poster. Here, you know what? I have it. I'm gonna send it to you over Messenger real quick because I have the image.
Okay.
I'm gonna send this to you. So you can see exactly what I'm talking about.
All right.
And you can tell me what you think. I'm sending it over now. You should get that. Anyone listening, don't worry. I will post this.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere.
Yeah, I have seen this cover.
Right? And I thought, is this a different movie? And then no.
Yeah, they did make him look totally like Twilighted out, didn't they? Good God.
Like, I feel somebody's just like, hey, that Twilight's pretty popular.
Yeah, that's definitely them. Like that I'm guessing that probably was a cover for a re-release or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And
it had
probably
to be around that time.
I would say, that it was probably around the Twilight time because that looks like one of those generic covers you see when you're looking for movies on Tubi.
Yeah. I sent you another one here. That's one of my more favorite looking ones.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few that are just Bill Paxton in different stages of being burnt up and
oh yeah, that's the cover I have.
I'm like,
is the cover that I have is where it says Near Dark and Red, and it's got on the side of it, almost kind of like in Tales from the Crypt fashion. It's got Lance Henriksen. He's got like a cloak. He's got the cloak over him. And then you have Diamondback underneath him. Then you have Homer, and then but big and in color is Bill Paxton all fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm looking at some of the different covers, and a lot of them are Bill Paxton being a bloody fucking burn up mess.
Yeah, I think it's just such an iconic image. There's this horror collage that I used to have as the wallpaper on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
And his image was there, and I used to have it up on Facebook as well as my banner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, that's a cool thing. And I would circle that one, and I go, I just don't know what this is. And they're like, dude, Near Dark, 1987, that's Bill Paxton. I was like, oh, now I have to see that movie. And then that led me to going, this is so slow. That was probably like 15 or more years ago at this point. So
they kind of...
I've matured enough now to appreciate Near Dark for what it is.
Oh, completely. What it seems like in most of the covers, I'm just kind of Googling right here, just going through. Most of the covers make it look like Bill Paxton's character is the main star of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he is such an animated character, and he's also one of everybody's favorites. That because like what was the original cover? Because the original cover, hold on, let me look this shit up real quick, just because I'm really curious how they did with the original.
Yeah, because there's a couple that I found, but I'm not sure which one is actually the original.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to actually, because I look up, well, I might have a very close version of the original. What I mean, but yeah, there are so many different covers of this fucking movie. God.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple that have Lance Henriksen alone, like as a bigger picture than some of the other ones.
Yeah, I saw some that looked like it might have been like a Shout Factory type of deal where they do like the almost Drew Struzan style covers for those. It looks similar to that. Then I found an international poster that had May on the cover. It was just a shot of May.
Oh, okay.
Here, I'll shoot you that one so you can see what I'm talking about, because it's hard to describe what it is, because it's just her and then them coming over the ridge out of the fog that we were talking about a little while ago.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually not a bad looking poster at all.
No.
It's like she's not really the focus of the movie after the beginning.
Right. It starts off making you think it's a love story. And then it kind of ends that way, but like kind of in the middle, you're kind of like, you don't know if you're supposed to like her or not.
Yeah. You don't really ever know. You're like, until the end, you're like, well, I guess now I can kind of like you because you guys are together. But through the whole movie, you're like,
she's kind of one of those, like, she's that girlfriend your friend just starts dating and like you see her flaws, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. But this cover that you showed me, I guess it's in Spanish. Yeah,
Spanish.
It's a lot of Spanish and Italian cover, versions of movies. They usually go with whatever they see as, like, usually like foreign like covers and stuff. They don't always make sense.
Yeah.
That one, I mean, it's not a bad cover. And it's better than some of the other ones, because I mean, like, it kind of goes along with like the original Little Shop of Horrors. Okay, the Roger Corman classic. In the original, Jack Nicholson's in it, young Jack Nicholson. He's in it for 5 minutes. He is the crazy guy that Bill Murray would later play in the remake.
Yeah.
That once he can't wait to get, his teeth ripped out. He can't, he's a fucking masochist. But if you go and buy the movie, it says starring Jack Nicholson, and it has Jack Nicholson's face on it.
Yeah. It's like, no, that's not true. It's not starring Jack Nicholson. He wasn't a name at this point. It's very early in his career.
Yeah.
I've seen those, and I'm like, that's just using somebody's clout to sell your version of this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. And also, I wonder, I was thinking about, you a fan of Preacher? The show or the graphic novel?
I have not got into either one of those.
Okay. Now, I don't know. Are you a comic book guy?
I was for a long time, but then I kind of fell off. My thing was like some superhero comics, and then of course the crossovers like Batman versus Predator, but I haven't got into a whole lot of other stuff lately.
There's a character named Cassidy. Preacher, the story of Preacher real quick is about a preacher who he's in limbo with his feelings about God.
Okay.
And he ends up finding out that he's on this mission, right? And one of his friends is this vampire named Cassidy. Cassidy wears sunglasses, and it doesn't seem to bother him much through the day. Like, he just wears sunglasses all the time. And I can't remember if he walks around. Like, I think he might cover up a little more, whatever. But Cassidy, especially in the comics, is very, very reminiscent of Bill Paxton's character in this.
Okay.
Like, if you look up some still shots of Cassidy from Preacher, I can't remember what the guy looks like in the show. I only watched like half the first season. Not a bad show. I need to actually finish it. But in the comics, though, the way he looks, the way he acts, even though he's not fully evil, he's a vampire who's trying not to be bad, and he's also an alcoholic too, which is kind of fun. But
it's an interesting twist.
Yeah, Yeah. So, cause like there's moments where like there's certain parts in it where like he's wearing like a leather jacket and he's got glasses on and he's smiling and he's got blood, and the way he looks very similar to Bill Paxton in the bar scene in Near Dark. So yeah, like, I mean, and there's no doubt in my mind that character was, influenced by Near Dark. Has to be. Like, it is completely, I mean, like Near Dark, there's a lot of people, and I guarantee there's a lot of, you know, like From Dusk Till Dawn, you know, a lot of people wouldn't even know that those scenes, like, you know, the whole tribute in the hotel, that whole thing was even a tribute to Near Dark.
Yeah, I had
You
no
know?
idea until you mentioned it here that it actually was, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's such a good film, and man, I don't have it on DVD. I only have it on VHS. But it's one of these that, like, man, there's a drive-in that we have in town that on Halloween, like they actually have 2 screens now.
Mhm.
And they're actually playing tomorrow night. They're playing Bordello of Blood and Frighteners as a double feature.
Oh,
Like, fucking crazy, right? But I would love for them to have Near Dark at some point, like before October's over, because that's one of those I would love to see on the big screen.
Oh yeah,
Just because it has that feeling. Like, I was watching it last night. Like, I was just like, this is like a movie. Like, they don't make them like this anymore. The way they look, the way they, like, you know, everything about it.
yeah.
It's just this movie screams like, you know, taking your girlfriend or your date to a horror movie, drive-in theater, whatever the hell.
Mhm.
It's a popcorn movie completely. And like I said, about From Dusk Till Dawn being a perfect movie, I think Near Dark is a perfect one as well.
Yeah. Near Dark is definitely the perfect drive-in movie. It's like you just want to eat a bunch of junk food, drink a bunch of soda, and just watch this movie about vampires just terror-assing
Truth.
through this town.
Fucking truth.
I mean, there's nothing better than that, really.
Right.
You throw a couple alcoholic beverages in there, maybe a little cannabis, you know.
I mean, it definitely makes things better. Yeah, no, I really can't say enough about this movie. You know what I mean? It's got everything you kind of want. You know, it's got that, like we said, it's got that Western feel to it. It's got, you know, that almost that road trip, if you know what I mean, that road trip kind of movie.
Yeah, it's got that road movie feel. I know exactly what you're talking about because I thought of that too.
Yeah. And again, man, the characters, I mean, they're all good. They all have their own staple in that movie. You know, because you have the family aspect, you know, because Jesse and Diamondback are kind of like mom and dad.
Yeah.
You know, Homer's the annoying brother, you know, and then you got May, who's the older sister who's just trying to find love.
She's like the wild-eyed sister who just wants love, and you know, she's she just wants to be seen as normal, just somebody to love her for who she is. And meanwhile, the parents and the little brother are like, yeah, but we kill motherfuckers too. And Severin, Bill Paxton, is just like, he's like the crazy cousin or the crazy uncle that's just hanging around.
Crazy uncle. I would totally,
Like, he's not going to be like, hey, come here. You should watch this movie with me. And I know you're only like 3 years old, but let's watch A Nightmare on Elm Street and Child's Play. And I'm going to give you a sip of this whiskey. It's like, that's Severin.
that is the kind of uncle that gets guys like us into those movies when we're younger.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, like that wasn't my case, but I have known many, and I have had family members who were very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, so, you know,
we've all known a Severin. We've all known the type.
Many. I might have even been him to a degree at some point in my life.
But yeah, I think we both come away recommending anyone who hasn't seen this, definitely check it out.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not available to stream anywhere.
No, it really isn't. That's kind of bullshit.
I will say this. I don't know about physical releases and where they're at, but because this isn't widely available on a streaming service, I will say, if you have the means to acquire this somehow, and you know what I'm getting at, go for it.
Right.
Go for it because you can't get it anywhere else. Do what you need to do to get this and check it out. I mean, I got hooked up with a mutual friend of ours to be able to watch this. So
I kind of figured.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was lucky enough to have this on VHS because I was looking at some places on my Fire Stick, and none of them worked. Like, so I was like, well, fuck, okay, because I didn't want to have to. My setup's kind of weird. Like, I have my VCR and stuff in the other room, but I've been over here in this room and didn't want to move everything around, so I just kind of watched it in the other room last night and stuff, But I was lucky to have my VHS copy. Damn.
Yeah. I went on to Just Watch, the app that I have, to see it. It was like, it's not on any streaming service. I'm like, well, this is some.
I wonder why that is.
It was on one of them not long ago too. I'm pretty sure.
Too.
And it's not for rental. It's not for purchase. Not anywhere.
I thought it was on Shudder.
I think it was on Shudder, and I was like, cool, I'll be able to get it. And now it's not there. I'm like, that's the quickest I've ever seen a movie go onto and leave Shudder.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was on Shudder because Shudder's really bad about, like, what I've noticed is, like, they like to add movies that they're like that I don't think they like really have the full rights for. So they have them on there, and then when they get a cease and desist, then they just take them off.
Yeah.
The same thing happens with Joe Bob episodes of Last Drive-In.
Yeah, as soon as they lose the rights to that movie, you can only get like the Joe Bob segments.
Yeah,
like everything else is gone. I'm like, well, fuck.
Which, if you watch the Last Drive-In episode of, if you watch the episode of Last Drive-In where they play alligator and grizzly. At the very end of Grizzly, they read a letter of mine on there, which is pretty
nice. I actually watched that video the other day where they were reading it.
Yeah, I remember when I wrote that to Miss Darcy, and she told me they would definitely have it on the air at some point, and I didn't know when, because they pre-tape everything and shit, and and I kind of forgot about it, and I was like, yeah, whatever, and it just so happens that the alligator Grizzly episode, I didn't watch the Grizzly part. I don't remember if I went to sleep or if I was doing something else or whatever. And I never even, and that was like a season or so ago. Like it was like last season, I think.
Yeah, I think it was this past season.
And then I wake up to like a buddy of mine, like messaging me over and over again, like he was trying to call me and all this shit. And I was like, what the fuck? And he was like, dude, they read your mail. Like you are like your name is on the Last Drive-In. Like you were in Joe Bob history now. Like you're one of the, you could say that you wrote it, and because it's a big deal with us. And,
yeah, you're a full-fledged mutant.
Right. Yeah. And it was that, and the whole thing, about, Fulci and all, his movies fitting and shit. And yeah, so yeah, if you just want to stick around after Grizzly, go check that shit out. Cause you never know. That's the thing. That's what he was telling me. He's like, dude, I'm so glad I found it. Cause you never know when, like they could have taken Grizzly. They could have taken that episode off and I would have never fucking known.
Exactly. And it wouldn't have come back until whenever they reacquired the rights.
Yeah. And
which could have been months or years.
Yeah. That's why I was like, fuck, I am taping it and I am putting it up on Facebook and Instagram and wherever else I can. Cause I'm pretty proud of it. I'm pretty proud of it. But as soon as they say Chuck Dales from Milestone, Kentucky, I'm like, holy shit. Which I prefer Chuck Nasty, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. I was actually shocked. I was on, cause I'm not on Twitter or X or whatever it's called anymore. I moved over to Threads and Darcy moved over to Threads.
Okay.
And I think she still has Twitter I think they still are over there for right now. And she was like, oh, hey, if you do this, I'll follow you back. I'm like, oh, hey, cool. A follow would be awesome. But just to know you're here and we can talk to you on this platform because I'm not on the other one is really cool. And she replied like, oh, yeah, here's a follow. That's cool. Great to have you. I'm like, she's very responsive and she just seems really cool.
No, she's awesome. I got to meet both Joe Bob and her last year. Yeah, we went to go to the what was it? It was the Joe Bob how rednecks saved film or something like that.
Oh yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about. For his book or something, right? Wasn't it? For his book or something like that.
Yeah. And basically, it's just it was really good because he was up there showing scenes of different movies and it wasn't all horror movies. It was just different movies throughout time that.
I think it's How Redneck Saved Hollywood or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And it was great. And Darcy was awesome. And I was probably more drunk than I probably should have been. But yeah. But,
yeah. I've always wanted to meet Joe Bob. That's
it. It was kind of a dream of mine to actually fucking meet him. But I don't even know if he understood the words out of my mouth because I was just kind of from back on Monster Vision, you're the reason why The Fog is one of my favorite movies. And every time I watch The Fog, I think of like you saying the fog. And I did that impression. I was just kind of like the fog. And he was like, okay. And so, but he wasn't, he was having some, leg troubles that night too, but he was also was hitting the whiskey kind of hard too that night. Like he was sipping it. Like he would stand up at the podium, do his whole thing, show a clip of a movie, sit down and have a sip and then give it, so he was a little bit on the tipsy side too, but yeah, he's super nice guy. Darcy's great. The drive-in never dies.
Exactly.
Yep. Words to live by.
So, Chuck, I'm going to give you one more time here. Why don't you promote all your shit wherever people can find you and all that? I don't mean shit in a bad way. I mean, you've got a lot going on, man.
I don't mean
it in the negative context.
No. But, shit does not always mean bad.
Yeah. I'm glad you understand that. Promote away. Tell people where they can find you and all that good stuff.
All right. All my shit. Let's see. You can go to Amazon and you can get my novel House of Flesh in paperback or ebook. You can get Thirsty, my novella. You can get that on Amazon as well. Same formats, as well as also you can get Sludge by myself, Stuart Bray, and Jason Nickey, all on Amazon. And then Video Store Clerks is on YouTube Tuesday nights, 10 o'clock. And that's YouTube, Facebook, all that fun stuff with that. Graveyard Talk and Nasty Nation, which Nasty Nation I haven't done much with, but Graveyard Talk's kind of like the main thing right now when it comes down to that, between those two. We're kind of planning something. We're kind of planning a YouTube channel at some point. I think we talked about it last time I was on here, I think.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on, but you can find that on Anchor, and Spotify. And you can find Video Store Clerks on Spotify as well. Before we did video, we were audio, and you can find a lot of those old episodes on there. I don't think we do the audio only anymore. I think we just kind of just do video. But you can find those old episodes on there, and some of them are kind of funny. But yeah. And Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat. You can listen to us on our Bandcamp. There's video clips of us on YouTube, our Facebook page. And if you look up our name, there's some interesting articles that pop up that it's kind of fun because I didn't realize we're around until a couple of years ago. And then, like I said, we got a new album coming out soon, and there'll be all those details on our page in the coming weeks. And
very nice.
Yeah, I think that's it at the moment. Yeah, we'll say that's it at the moment. Yeah.
All right. As always, there will be links to all of Chuck's shit.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
In the show notes, where you can find his book, where you can check out the band, everything they got going on, all his podcasts and everything. As always, you can find Skewered Universe pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, with the exception of Stitcher, that is now dead. Pregnant pause there. Dead? Stitcher is dead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was purchased by SiriusXM and they killed it off recently. Okay. Yeah, like about a month ago, I think.
Oh, okay.
And everyone was like posting like, "Hey, just because Stitcher's dead doesn't mean our podcast is gone." you can find us elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah, it was just a weird decision to like, we're going to roll podcasts into our Sirius XM radio. Like, not how people who listen to podcasts want to search for podcasts, but all right. Good for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, like I said, Skewered Universe, Apple Podcasts, Google, all that good stuff. If you head over to skeweredhead.com, you can find all of our social media links, link to our Patreon, the blog, all that kind of cool stuff. And I want to say, Chuck, thank you for coming on. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude. I love coming on here, man, and bullshitting with you. I know we kind of went off the rails a little bit, but that's always to be expected when we're on here doing this shit. So I've had a blast tonight, man. Thanks for having me on and letting me come and plug my shit and all that. Anytime.
It's always good when I post up an episode that you're on because it seems to do really well. The Terrifier 2 episode, we got quite a few people listening to that one, so
sweet.
It'll be fun to see how many people check out this one.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I'll make sure that when it's out, I'll post the hell out of it as well.
Yeah, I'll let you know when it's ready for release, and then we'll let people know.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, man. Thanks again, and until next time, everybody, you keep enjoying that universe that's just a bit skewed.
A buddy of mine, like, messaging me over and over again, like he was trying to call me and all this shit, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And he was like, "Dude, they read your mail. Like, you are, like, your name is on the Last Drive-In. Like, you were in, Joe Bob history now. Like, you're one of the, you could say that you wrote it, and because it's a big deal with us. And
you're a full-fledged mutant,
right? Yeah, and it was that, and the whole thing, about Fulci and all, his movies fitting and shit. And so if you just want to stick around after Grizzly, go check that shit out, because you never know. That's the thing. That's what he was telling me. He's like, dude, I'm so glad I found it, because you never know when, like, they could have taken Grizzly, they could have taken that episode off, and I would have never fucking known.
Exactly, and it wouldn't have come back until whenever they reacquired the rights.
Yeah, and
which could have been months or years.
Yeah, that's why I was like, fuck, I am taping it and I am putting it up on Facebook and Instagram and wherever else I can, because I'm pretty proud of it. I'm pretty proud of it. But as soon as they say Chuck Dales from Milestone, Kentucky, I'm like, holy shit. Which I prefer Chuck Nasty, but that's okay.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I was actually shocked. I was on because I'm not on Twitter or X or whatever it's called anymore. I moved over to Threads, and Darcy moved over to Threads.
Okay.
And I think she still has Twitter I think they still are over there for right now. And she was like, oh, hey, if you do this, I'll follow you back. I'm like, oh, hey, cool. A follow would be awesome. But just to know you're here and we can talk to you on this platform, because I'm not on the other one, is really cool. And she replied like, oh, yeah, here's a follow. That's cool. Great to have you. I'm like, she's very responsive. And she just seems really
cool. No, she's awesome. I got to meet both Joe Bob and her last year. Yeah, we went to go to the what was it? It was the Joe Bob, the How Rednecks Saved film or something like that.
Oh yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about. For his book or something, right? Wasn't it? For his book or something like that.
Yeah. And basically, it's just it was really good, because he was up there showing scenes of different movies, and it wasn't all horror movies. It was just different movies throughout time that,
I think it's How Redneck Saved Hollywood or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And it was great. And Darcy was awesome, and I was probably more drunk than I probably should have been. But yeah.
But yeah. I've always wanted to meet Joe Bob. That's
it. It was kind of a dream of mine to actually fucking meet him. But I don't even know if he understood the words out of my mouth, because I was just kind of from back on Monster Vision, you're the reason why The Fog is one of my favorite movies. And every time I watch The Fog, I think of like you saying the fog. And I did that impression. I was just kind of like, the fog. And he was like, okay. And so, but he wasn't, he was having some, leg troubles that night too, but he was also was hitting the whiskey kind of hard too that night. Like he was sipping it. Like he would stand up at the podium, do his whole thing, show a clip of a movie, sit down and have a sip, and then give So he was a little bit on the tipsy side too, but yeah,
I
super nice guy. Super nice guy. Darcy's great. The drive-in never dies.
Exactly.
Yep. Words to live by.
So, Chuck, I'm gonna give you one more time here. Why don't you promote all your shit wherever people can find you and all that? I don't mean shit in a bad way. I mean, you've got a lot going on, man.
I don't mean
it in the negative context.
No.
But,
shit does not always mean bad.
Yeah. I'm glad you understand that. Promote away. Tell people where they can find you and all that good stuff.
All right, all my shit. Let's see. You can go to Amazon and you can get my novel House of Flesh in paperback or ebook. You can get Thirsty, my novella. You can get that on Amazon as well. Same formats, as well as also you can get Sludge by myself, Stuart Bray, and Jason Nickey, all on Amazon. And then Video Store Clerks is on YouTube Tuesday nights, 10 o'clock. And that's YouTube, Facebook, all that fun stuff with that. Graveyard Talk and Nasty Nation, which Nasty Nation I haven't done much with, but Graveyard Talk's kind of like the main thing right now when it comes down to that, between those two. We're kind of planning something. We're kind of planning a YouTube channel at some point. I think we talked about it last time I was on here, I think.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on, but you can find that on Anchor, and Spotify. And you can find Video Store Clerks on Spotify as well. Before we did video, we were audio, and you can find a lot of those old episodes on there. I don't think we do the audio only anymore. I think we just kind of just do video. But you can find those old episodes on there, and some of them are kind of funny. And Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat. You can listen to us on our Bandcamp. There's video clips of us on YouTube, our Facebook page. And if you look up our name, there's some interesting articles that pop up that it's kind of fun because I didn't realize we're around until a couple of years ago. And then, like I said, we got a new album coming out soon, and there'll be all those details on our page in the coming weeks. And
very nice.
Yeah, I think that's it at the moment. Yeah, we'll say that's it at the moment. Yeah.
All right. As always, there will be links to all of Chuck's shit.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
In the show notes, where you can find his book, where you can check out the band, everything they got going on, all his podcasts and everything. As always, you can find Skewered Universe pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, with the exception of Stitcher, that is now dead. Pregnant pause there. Stitcher is dead.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was purchased by SiriusXM and they killed it off recently.
Okay.
Yeah. Like about a month ago, I think.
Okay.
And everyone was like posting like, hey, just because Stitcher's dead doesn't mean our podcast is gone. You can find us elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah. It was just a weird decision. They're like, we're going to roll podcasts into our SiriusXM radio. Like, not how people who listen to podcasts want to search for podcasts, but all right. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, like I said, Skewered Universe, Apple Podcasts, Google, all that good stuff. If you head over to skeweredhead.com, you can find all of our social media links, link to our Patreon, the blog, all that kind of cool stuff. And I want to say, Chuck, thank you for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah,
dude. I love coming on here, man, and bullshitting with you. I know we kind of went off the rails a little bit, but that's always to be expected when we're on here doing this shit. So I've had a blast tonight, man. Thanks for having me on and letting me come and plug my shit and all that.
Anytime. It's always good when I post up an episode that you're on because it seems to do really well. The Terrifier 2 episode, we got quite a few people listening to that one. So
sweet.
It'll be fun to see how many people check out this one.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I'll make sure that when it's out, I'll post the hell out of it as well.
Yeah, I'll let you know when it's ready for release, and then we'll let people know.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, man. Thanks again, and until next time, everybody, you keep enjoying that universe that's just a bit skewered.
What you people want? Just a couple more minutes of your time, about the same duration as the rest of your life.